Chapter 801, Old Master Zhou, please give him to me. Mrs. Zhou instantly came back to her senses and temporarily put aside the matter of the Qiuyue family. She asked in surprise, the young master of the prefecture magistrate Deus family? When did we have a relationship with the Dai family? The servant shook his head. I don't know. Master seems to be quite puzzled too. Mrs. Zhou thought for a moment. Go to the front yard and wait. Listen to what's going on. I hope He's not here for trouble. She said the last sentence in an extremely low voice. As she finished speaking, she began to feel uneasy. The servant hurriedly ran out. At this moment, Zhu Dafu was also feeling uneasy. After asking Dai Wenhua to take a seat, he asked tentatively, May I know why young Master Dai is here today? There's nothing special. I just want to ask if old Master Zhu can give me 2 servants, Dai Wenhua said with a smile. Zhu Dafu heaved a sigh of relief and asked curiously, Who is young Master Dai talking about? Dai Wenhua took out 2 wooden carvings and said, When I went on the streets today, I saw a woman holding a wooden carving. I liked it very much and wanted to buy a few more from her. Unexpectedly, the woman said that she was a servant of the Zhou mansion. This wooden carving was carved by her husband, so she couldn't sell it to me. Zhu Dafu was surprised. There was a servant in his residence who knew how to sculpt. He did not know that. He picked up the wooden carving that Dai Wenhua had placed on the table and took a closer look. It was indeed quite exquisite, but there was still a gap between it and the works of those real old craftsmen. It was rare for Dai Wenhua to like it. However, Dai Wenhua did not seem to see the doubt in his eyes. He sighed faintly and said as if he was recalling, I really like this wooden carving. I'm not afraid of old Master Zhu laughing at me. I learned it myself when I was young, but I wasn't good at it, so I put it down. Now that I see this wooden carving, I actually think of those things when I was young. I suddenly feel a little emotional, so I want to pick it up again and learn it. I can kill time in my spare time. Coincidentally, I met this sculptor who suits me, so on impulse, I came to ask old Master Zhu to give them to me. Zhu Dafu was stunned. So that was the case. His mind began to work quickly. He had no interaction with Dai Wenhua at all. Usually, it was harder than ascending to the heavens to climb up the Dai residence. This was a rare opportunity. Dai Wenhua only wanted 2 servants. Not to mention the servants that he had no impression of and were worthless, he would not have any objections even if Dai Wenhua wanted the servant beside him. Moreover, using these 2 servants to establish a relationship with Dai Wenhua would be very beneficial to him in the future. Seeing that he was silent, Dai Wenhua smiled and said, Of course, it's fine if old Master Zhu can't bear to part with them. I'm just saying. Zhu Dafu was shocked and hurriedly said with a smile, Young Master Dai, you must be joking. They're just 2 servants. How can I be reluctant to let them go? I'm a boor and don't understand these elegant things. This sculptor will be wasting his talent if he's with me. Only by following young Master Dai will he have a chance to be useful. I can't ask for more. Dai Wenhua had already come personally. If he didn't give the servants to him, he would be ungrateful. Old Master Zhu is indeed a reasonable person. Dai Wenhua took out 50 taels of silver from his sleeve and slowly pushed it over the table. This is the silver to buy them. I hope old Master Zhu will accept it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 802. Oh no, He's going to inform them. Zhu Dafu hurriedly waved his hand. I can't accept the money. They're just 2 servants. I'll just give them to young Master Dai. That won't do, Dai Wenhua said meaningfully. If that's the case, I'll be criticized if word gets out. I don't want to be criticized behind my back for 2 servants. Zhu Dafu suddenly came back to his senses and thought of the prefecture magistrate Deus identity. Indeed, giving gifts was one thing, but it couldn't be done openly. What if someone targeted the prefecture magistrate and reported him to the emperor? Wouldn't it mean that he had done something bad out of good intentions? Not only did he not let young Master Dai owe him a favor, but he also made people hate him. At the thought of this, Zhu Dafu shuddered on the spot and said with a serious expression, Young Master Dai makes sense. We're doing a normal transaction. That's right. It's better to write it clearly in a contract. Without another word, Zhu Dafu asked the butler to bring a pen and paper over. He wrote down the contract that Bian Han and Jiyu Dafeng had been sold to Dai Wenhua, signed it, and gave each of them a copy. Dai Wenhua put away his copy in satisfaction, and a glint flashed across his slightly lowered eyes. That's right. It was a normal transaction, and the silver had been paid. In the future, don't ask me for favors just because you have given me 2 servants. I wouldn't admit it. Zhu Dafu had misunderstood and did not realize that he had fallen into Dai Wenhuo's trap. He invited Dai Wenhua to drink tea, then asked someone to bring the servant with the surname Bian. The servant turned around to go, but he was stopped by steward Zhu halfway. "I'll go." The person sent by Mrs. Zhu happened to see it. He immediately ran back to the tranquil orchid courtyard and panted as he recounted the matter. When Mrs. Zhu heard that Dai Wenhua was here to ask for the servants, she was stunned. Could it be that the brother that the Qiuyue woman met was related to the prefecture magistrate's family? He didn't come before because he went to ask the young master for help. "Oh no, madam, Steward Zhu is on good terms with Mrs. Ren. I'm afraid he went to inform her, right?" the nanny suddenly exclaimed. Mrs. Zhu could not sit still anymore. "Let's go to the front yard to take a look. Nanny, bring someone to the snow-blowing garden personally to bring her out. If Mrs. Ren stops you, say that it's old master's orders. If she delays you, we'll teach her a lesson." "Yes, ma'am. Bring a few more people." The nanny immediately ordered a few servants in the courtyard to leave with her. Mrs. Zhu tidied her clothes and led the 2 maidservants to the front courtyard. At this moment, Jiyu Yundong also saw Steward Zhu, who had stopped the servants and personally went to look for the servants. A bad feeling flashed across her heart. She whispered to Dai Wenhua, "I'll go to the toilet." Dai Wenhua knew that she must have something to do and immediately scolded, "I told you to drink less water before leaving. Come back quickly." Zhu Dafu saw that although Dai Wenhua was dissatisfied, he did not seem angry at all. He knew that Dai Wenhua definitely liked this servant. Hence, he quickly said, "I'll get the servant to bring this young man over." Jiyu Yundong said in a rough voice, "No need, no need. I'll just go out and ask." Then, she looked like she couldn't hold it in anymore and ran away. Zhu Dafu frowned slightly and hurriedly gave the butler a look. This was his residence. Although the other party was brought over by young Master Dai, the servant could not walk around casually. His study had many secrets. The butler hurried to catch up, but Jiyu Yundong ran very fast. How could the butler catch up? Chapter 803. Oh no, the butler was a little angry that he had lost the stranger. If he told Zhu Dafu now, he would definitely make Dai Wenhua unhappy. Therefore, he could only make the people guarding the study and the warehouse more vigilant and strict. However, Jiyu Yundong did not go to those places at all. She moved very quickly and soon caught up with Steward Zhu, who was walking towards the snow-blowing garden. Steward Zhu quickly entered the courtyard, but there were 2 old women guarding the entrance. Jiyu Yundong was just thinking about how to put the 2 of them down when she heard hurried footsteps behind him. She quickly hid behind a big tree at the side and watched helplessly as 4 burly old women followed a nanny and quickly walked towards the snow-blowing garden. The nanny in the lead instructed the old woman behind her with a serious expression, "Keep a close eye on Mrs. Ren later. That person is the most ruffian. You must not let her go over and hide that servant with the surname Bian. Do you hear me?" "Got it." Jiyu Yundong narrowed his eyes. "Mrs. Ren? Who were these people?" They looked fierce, as if they were here to cause trouble. The next moment, Jiyu Yundong confirmed her guess. These people were indeed here to cause trouble. As soon as they reached the entrance of the courtyard, they were stopped by the old woman guarding the door. "What are you doing? This is the snow-blowing garden. You're not allowed to be impudent." The leading nanny did not stop walking at all. She said to the old woman behind her, "Shut their mouths and drag them to the side." "Yes." Then, 2 old women walked out and pounced on the 2 guards. The 2 of them instantly shouted, "Nanny Shu, how dare you? Aren't you afraid that old master will argue with madam if he finds out?" Nanny Shu sneered. We're here on master's orders to look for someone. After saying that, she entered without looking back. The old woman guarding the door wanted to say something, but her mouth was blocked and she could not make a sound at all. Then, she was dragged away. Yundong understood that the people who came later were Mrs. Zhu's people. It seemed like Mrs. Zhu knew that Qiuyue was up to no good, so she took precautions in advance. It just so happened that she had helped Yundong. Without the old woman guarding the door, Yundong could easily enter again. She followed Nanny Shu inside and saw Qiuyue, whom she thought was dead, sitting in the central room. She was wearing gold and silver, and her face was rosy and her figure was curled up. Her life was not ordinary. Steward Zhou was standing in front of Qiuyue. Steward Zhou bowed slightly as if he was reporting to her. However, Qiuyue had a relaxed expression on her face. She wasn't in a hurry even when Nanny Shu barged in. She just chuckled. Steward Zhou, what are you talking about? A man with the surname Bian? I don't have such a person. You're making things difficult for me. You can't possibly make me create one for you, right? Also, Nanny Shu, what do you mean by bringing so many people into my courtyard with great fanfare? I'm Master's concubine after all. You're disrespectful and don't take Master seriously at all. This pretentious look made Yundong feel nauseous. But very quickly, she narrowed her eyes and scanned the room. Other than Qiuyue and a few younger maidservants, she did not look like Mrs. Ren at all. Yundong's expression changed slightly. Oh no. Chapter 804, Yundong makes a move retracting her gaze from Qiyue's face. Yundong immediately turned around and ran to the left. Her movements were a little loud, causing the few old women standing behind Nanny Shu to turn around. Unfortunately, before they could take a closer look, she had already disappeared. Yundong ran very fast. Eldest Aunt Qiuyue had already told her about the layout of the entire snow-blowing garden before she came. She also knew where the room they were locked in was. Thus, Yundong recalled for a moment before heading straight to her destination. As expected, when she ran to the door of the second room in the small courtyard at the back, she saw a woman about the same age as Nanny Shu hurriedly opening the lock of a room with two maidservants. Then, the two maidservants pushed open the door and entered. Mrs. Ren stood at the door to keep watch. Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. There was still time. She suddenly rushed forward. Mrs. Ren felt as if there was a gust of wind behind her. Just as she was about to turn around, she was hit hard on the shoulder. Before she could see who was behind her, her eyes rolled back and she fainted on the ground. Seeing this, Yundong immediately screamed, "Ah! Mrs. Ren!" The two maidservants in the room who were about to carry Bian out were shocked when they heard this. They hurriedly left him behind and ran out. Then, they saw the person lying on the ground. The two of them were shocked and lost for a moment. They quickly squatted down and called her, "Mrs. Ren, what's wrong? Wake up." Yundong hid in a corner and was wondering if she should knock out the two maidservants when Nanny Shu had already arrived with her people. She probably heard Yundong's scream and ran over. She took the lead and walked the fastest. Steward Zhou cursed in his heart and followed them. On the other hand, Qiuyue was stumbling at the back because her clothes were too cumbersome. Seeing that they were here, Yundong decided to hide and observe the situation. Steward Zhou's expression changed when he saw Mrs. Ren lying on the ground. He asked, "What happened?" The two maidservants were dumbfounded and replied in fear, "Mrs. Ren fainted." "Why did she faint out of nowhere?" Nanny Shu sneered. She probably fainted because she felt guilty after doing too many bad things and was too nervous. Then, she took the lead and walked towards the room in front of her. She asked Bian, "Is your surname Bian?" Bian's mind was still in a mess. He had been a little worried since Dafeng left in the morning, but he could not move his legs and could only wait. However, who knew that the person who had originally said that she would be back at noon had not been around for 4 hours? Just as Bian was feeling worried, Mrs. Ren's voice came from outside the door. Immediately after, the door was opened and two maidservants came over to carry him away. Bian felt as if his brain was about to explode. There was only one thought in his mind: the matter of Dafeng sneaking out of the mansion had been discovered. However, before he could finish this thought, the two maidservants threw away their hands and ran out. Immediately after, a large group of people barged into the house. Nanny Shu was a little disgusted. After all, Qiuyue was the one who used this room to lock people up. In addition, Bian Han was an injured person, so the smell in the room was a little unpleasant. She waved her hand and let the two old women carry Bian Han out. Then, she walked out of the door first. However, just as she was about to leave with Bian Han, Qiuyue stopped her with a furious look on her face. Chapter 805. She was here to hammer concubine Qiuyue to death. Nanny Shu, what do you mean? This is my snow-blowing garden. How can a B*TCH like you come and take people as you please? Qiuyue was furious. When she heard Steward Zhou say that someone had come to look for the servant with the surname Bian in her courtyard, she and Mrs. Ren immediately thought of Bian Han. Mrs. Ren immediately wanted to secretly take him away. Who knew that she was still a step too late? What was even more hateful was that Qiuyue Dafeng was not in the house. She must have run out to cause trouble. She had really underestimated her. Nanny Shu saw the man she needed. Since he was not secretly taken away beforehand, she was not in a hurry. She laughed and looked at Steward Zhou beside her. Steward Zhou, I didn't want to come in and take him away casually. Tell me, did old master ask you to come and bring this servant with the surname Bian out? Our madam saw that Steward Zhou came alone and heard that this person's legs were inconvenient, so she asked me to bring someone to help. Why, Steward Zhou, don't you appreciate it? Steward Zhou laughed dryly. Now that things had come to this, he couldn't openly side with Qiuyue. He could only nod and say, that's indeed the case. This matter was indeed ordered by old master. Qiuyue glared at him. Steward Zhou gave her a look, indicating that there was no room for negotiation. Yundong watched from afar. Why did she feel that the two of them had a tacit understanding? Nanny Shu laughed. Since Steward Zhou has confirmed it, concubine Qiuyue, please don't block the way. The master is still waiting for you. If you neglect your esteemed guest, your position as a concubine will come to an end. Qiuyue gritted her teeth and could only let Nanny Shu leave. However, before she left, she looked at Bian Han with a warning gaze. Bian Han did not notice it at all. He was confused and could only vaguely hear that old master wanted to see him. Nanny Shu left with her people, her head held high. Sigh, without Mrs. Ren's pestering, she felt refreshed. Things went especially smoothly. She did not know how Mrs. Ren fainted, but it was really at the right time. Yundong smiled. She knew that Qiuyue could no longer stop them, so she quietly returned to the front hall. After she stood behind Dai Wenhua again, Dai Wenhua glanced at her. Yundong pursed her lips and smiled slightly. Yundong noticed a woman sitting beside him. Judging from her attire, she should be Mrs. Zhou. However, Zhu Dafu didn't look too good. He was obviously very unhappy that Mrs. Zhou had come. That was true. There were no females for her to entertain. If she ran to the male guest so casually, Zhu Dafu felt that it would leave a bad impression on young Master Dai, who would feel that the merchant family was indeed unruly. But Mrs. Zhou was here to deal a blow to concubine Qiuyue, and she had to come. Hence, she pretended not to see Zhu Dafu's warning gaze. Anyway, he wouldn't scold her away in front of Dai Wenhua, so she just lowered her head and waited quietly. After a while, there was a commotion outside. Zhu Dafu said to Dai Wenhua, he must have been brought here. As soon as he finished speaking, Steward Zhou entered and reported, Master, Bian Han has been carried over. Zhu Dafu was stunned. Carried over? Before he could figure it out, Nanny Shu and the others walked in valiantly. However, at this moment, an even faster figure flew past the crowd and pounced into Zhu Dafu's arms. She cried loudly, Master, you have to stand up for me. Chapter 806. Young Master Dai can just take him away. Yundong smirked. Mrs. Zhou also smiled. Dai Wenhua also hooked his lips. Only Zhu Dafu's face was ashen. He pushed the person out and shouted angrily, What are you doing? There are esteemed guests here. Who asked you to be so unruly? Qiuyue was stunned. She felt extremely wronged, but she could still see clearly that there were many people standing in the hall. Mrs. Zhou was also there. At this moment, she was looking at her in a good mood. However, the disdain in her eyes was obvious, as if she was saying that a village woman was a village woman. Vulgar and stupid. Qiuyue felt extremely nauseous. Without Mrs. Ren by her side, she was at a loss and forgot that Steward Zhou had mentioned that there were guests at home. The man sitting on the other side should be the esteemed guest that Zhu Dafu mentioned, right? Qiuyue didn't dare to look at him at all. This person had a strong aura. He just sat there calmly and seemed to be even more terrifying than Zhu Dafu, who was standing. Qiuyue didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore. After apologizing, she stood at the side. Zhu Dafu glared at her before taking a deep breath and looking at Bian Han. The next moment, he frowned fiercely and took 2 steps forward. "What's wrong with your legs?" Bian Han was placed on the ground. After being tortured like this, his legs vaguely hurt, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. "Master, my legs are broken." Yundong could tell and frowned slightly. However, Dai Wenhua said, "Since his legs are injured, why isn't there a stretcher to carry him? This is too much." Zhu Dafu hurriedly nodded. "I was inconsiderate. Steward Zhu, why aren't you finding a stretcher?" "Yes, my lord." Even Steward Zhu had left. Qiuyue was instantly isolated and helpless. She started to panic. Zhu Dafu glanced at Bian Han and frowned. Which courtyard did this Bian Han come from? Why was he so sloppy? He didn't even have any good clothes. Although he was wearing clean clothes, they were too tattered. Coupled with his crippled legs, he looked like a beggar on the street. No, even a beggar was better than him. Could this young Master Dai have misunderstood that their servants were not living well? No, after young Master Dai left, he had to figure out who was in charge of this Bian guy. He was actually in charge of him to this extent. He was simply neglecting his duty and embarrassing him. Zhu Dafu secretly took a deep breath and turned to Dai Wenhua with a smile. "He's here. Young Master Dai, see if it's him. If it's him, I'll get someone to change his clothes. Young Master Dai, you can just take him away." Qiyue's expression changed. "Take him away? Let this young master take Bian Han away? How could he do that? No way." Initially, she thought that Mrs. Zhu had only complained to Old Master and treated Zhu Dafeng and her husband as tools to deal with her. It turned out that she did not. Instead, she had given them to young Master Dai. Dai Wenhua had already learned from Yundong that this person was the person they were looking for. He immediately said to Zhu Dafu, "It's him. There's no need to change his clothes. Anyway, I'll distribute new clothes to him when I bring him back to the residence. Old Master Zhu, please give me the indenture." Of course, of course." Zhu Dafu nodded. He turned to look for Steward Zhu and realized that he had sent him to find a stretcher. Hence, she could only look at Nanny Shu, who had brought the man in. Chapter 807, He's a servant of Concubine Gus Courtyard. Zhu Dafu thought that since he was brought in by Nanny Shu, this servant must be from Madam's courtyard. He was immediately a little dissatisfied. He glared at Nanny Shu and said, "Aren't you going to bring the indenture over?" Nanny Shu darted a look at Qiuyue and answered respectfully and confidently, "Master, this woman belongs to Concubine Gus Yard, and you have to ask Concubine Qiuyue for the indenture. I can't just barge into Concubine Gus Yard, lest I break the rules." Zhu Dafu was stunned and turned to look at Qiuyue. "Your courtyard?" Qiuyue bit her lips, feeling a little indignant. However, she still nodded slightly. Zhu Dafu frowned even more. Qiuyue had always given him the impression that she was gentle and kind. Although she would occasionally behave inappropriately, she had lived in the countryside in the past and had never learned the rules. He was still tolerant. But now, this beggar-like servant in front of them was actually from her courtyard? How was this possible? He felt a little awkward, but with Dai Wenhua around, he could only suppress these emotions. He said to Qiuyue in a low voice, "Since he's a servant in your courtyard, why don't you take out the indenture?" Mrs. Zhu also smiled and said, "That's right, Sister Qiuyue, quickly take out the indenture." Old Master has already discussed it with young Master Dai. Now that this servant has been sold to young Master Dai, you don't want Old Master to go back on his word, right? As expected, Zhou Daifu's expression instantly darkened. Aren't you going? Qiuyue could only leave the front hall unwillingly. She ran back to call Mrs. Wren, but the other party still did not wake up. She could only return to the front hall with the indenture. At this moment, Steward Zhu had already ordered someone to bring a stretcher over. Yundong and Dai Zhong personally helped Bian Han onto the stretcher. They only let go when he was comfortable. After that, they were just waiting for Qiyue's indenture. Seeing that she was slow, Zhu Dafu became even more displeased. You're so slow. You're not up to standard. Mrs. Zhu immediately covered her mouth and laughed silently. Qiyue's face turned red and her fingers trembled slightly. She suddenly raised her head and didn't hand over the indenture in her hand. She only said to Zhu Dafu, Master, these are my people after all. Why didn't you ask me when you sold them to others? Zhu Daifu's expression changed drastically. He was actually questioned by a concubine in front of Dai Wanhua. Mrs. Zhu even covered her mouth with a handkerchief and laughed silently. Now, Old Master would know how embarrassing it was for him to take in a country woman who did not know the rules, right? He deserved it. Zhu Dafu cared about his reputation. How could he tolerate Qiyue's provocation? Even if I sell you, I don't need to ask you. Qiuyue gasped and her body swayed. What was the meaning of this? She was about to lose her balance, and the indenture in her hand was snatched by Zhu Dafu. Mrs. Wren, who had finally been woken up by various methods, rushed in. Master, I have something to say. Zhu Dafu was very irritable. He had sold 2 servants, but all of them dared to come out and provoke him. Who was the master of this house? However, Mrs. Wren was someone by his deceased mother's side. His mother valued Mrs. Wren very much. Before she died, she even instructed him not to disappoint her. For the sake of the old madam, Zhu Dafu said with a dark expression, Speak. Chapter 808, Uncle, Yundong. Mrs. Wren glanced at Bian Han and said, Actually, this Bian Han and his wife are different from ordinary servants. She specially mentioned Qiuyue Dafeng and gave Bian Han a subtle warning. She continued, they had sold themselves. Bian Han's legs were badly injured and he had no money to treat them. Concubine Qiuyue happened to run into him, so she was kind enough to give them money to treat his legs. Unfortunately, Bian Han's legs were so badly injured that even the doctor could not do anything about it. Although his legs could not be treated, the Bian couple still thanked Aunt. Besides, they were penniless and had nowhere to go, so they wanted to sell themselves to repay Aunt. Yundong's mouth twitched. Not bad. You're quite good at making up stories. The more Mrs. Wren spoke, the more convinced she became. I am a kind-hearted woman, so I agreed. But concubine Qiuyue also said that she would not sell them out. If someone wants to sell them out one day, she has to agree first. Qiuyue heaved a sigh of relief. Indeed, with Mrs. Wren by her side, she had nothing to be afraid of. Hence, she immediately nodded in agreement, and tears welled up in her eyes. That's right. Does Master want me to be the person who goes back on his word? This, Zhu Dafu instantly frowned. He looked at Dai Wanhua, who said with a smile, Actually, Mr. Zhu, you don't have to be so embarrassed. Since concubine Qiuyue said so, you can ask Bian Han directly. If he is willing, I can take him away. Zhu Dafu looked at Bian Han. What do you think? Mrs. Wren said, Bian Han, you have to think about it clearly. I think you still have to discuss this with your wife. Otherwise, this couple will be separated. Bian Han could tell and his face turned pale. Yundong could tell that she was threatening Bian Han with his wife. Unfortunately, Mrs. Wren and Qiuyue did not know that Dai Wanhua wanted to buy 2 people this time. Previously, when Steward Zhu went to inform Qiuyue, because time was tight, he did not have time to explain the cause and effect. He probably only said that someone wanted to buy Bian Han and did not even have time to explain the reason before going in. Later on, in the front hall, they talked about indentures a few times, but they didn't mention that there were 2. Hence, Qiuyue and Mrs. Ren thought that Dai Wanhua only liked Bian Han and wanted to take him away. Even Bian Han himself thought so. Hence, Mrs. Ren's threat was very effective. Bian Han would not leave eldest aunt Qiuyue here alone to be tortured by Qiuyue. He was about to answer when Yundong suddenly tugged at his sleeve. Yundong was squatting in front of the stretcher in front of him. His back was facing Zhu Dafu and the others, and there was still some distance between them. Hence, she lowered her voice and said softly, "Uncle, Yundong. Sure, don't look at me first." Bian Han was stunned. "Yundong?" He subconsciously followed Yundong's instructions. Then, Yundong's voice rang in his ears again. "Don't worry. I've already met eldest aunt. She's with my father now. Just say that you want to leave with young Master Dai." A hint of joy flashed across Bian Han's eyes. He could finally put down his worries and fears. It turned out that Dafeng was fine and had even met her brother. That was good, that was good. Bian Han felt relieved. When he looked at Zhu Dafu again, he was no longer afraid. He spoke slowly, but he was exceptionally firm. "I'm willing to go with this young Master Dai." Chapter 809, He Wants Two Servants What? The smugness on Qiuyue and Mrs. Ren's faces disappeared. They looked at Bian Han in disbelief. Qiuyue almost blurted out and asked him if he didn't plan to care about Zhu Dafeng anymore. Fortunately, Mrs. Ren was quick to stop her. Zhu Dafu heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he didn't break his promise in front of Dai Wanhua. He asked Qiuyue for the indenture. The latter was still in a daze. It was Mrs. Ren who took the indenture from her and handed it to Zhu Dafu. However, Zhu Dafu frowned as he looked at the indenture in his hand. "Why is there only one?" Qiuyue came back to her senses. This is Bian Han's. It's a slave contract. What about his wife?" A bad feeling flashed across Mrs. Ren's eyes. She asked uncertainly, "Master, do you mean that you want the indenture of the Qiuyue woman?" Mrs. Zhu watched the drama and finally smiled. "Sister Qiuyue, I'm afraid you don't know that the people young Master Dai wanted from the beginning were this Bian couple." Qiuyue's face turned pale. "How can it be?" Mrs. Zhu continued, "Young Master Dai has a good taste. He accidentally saw this wooden carving and knew that it was carved by Bian Han in our residence. Look, he was chatting happily with Old Master. Old Master sold the two of them to young Master Dai." At this moment, Mrs. Ren's face turned pale. Wooden carving, wooden carving? Could it be those wooden carvings that she secretly took out? Damn it, she shouldn't have been greedy. Zhu Dafu had completely lost his patience. "Mrs. Ren, go back and bring the other indenture over. Seriously, you're so dilly-dallying. You're not straightforward at all." Mrs. Ren answered in a daze and quickly went out. It was not until she reached the snow-blowing garden that she slowly let out a breath. Forget it, these two were servants at the Dai mansion. They were still slaves, but Concubine Qiuyue could not vent her anger. However, Madam had been keeping a close eye on them recently. The two of them had only been locked up in the backyard for nothing. Actually, what Mrs. Ren meant was that it was good to sell them as soon as possible, lest Madam found out about their relationship with Aunt one day and used them as tools to attack. Mrs. Ren thought that Concubine Qiuyue should not have brought these two people into the mansion to vent her anger, so she decided to sell them now. At the thought of this, Mrs. Ren sped up and hurried to the front hall with the indentures. Zhu Dafu handed both indentures to Dai Wanhua. Dai Wanhua had been here for a long time. Now that he was done, he bade farewell to Zhu Dafu. Zhu Dafu wanted to keep him for dinner, but Dai Wanhua refused. Zhu Dafu could only walk him out regretfully while Yundong and Dai Zhong carried Bian Han into the carriage. "Bian Han, when you go to the Dai residence in the future, serve young Master Dai well. Be careful and don't lose him." Before Zhu Dafu could finish speaking, Yundong pulled down the curtain and blocked his view. Zhu Dafu rubbed his nose. All right, maybe the man didn't like people who had already been sold being educated by their old masters. He cupped his hands at Dai Wanhua and watched as the carriage turned away. However, just as he was about to leave, the curtain beside the carriage was lifted, revealing Bian Han's thin face. He looked straight at the person standing behind Zhu Dafu and said calmly, Qiuyue. Chapter 8:10. Bian Han is her brother-in-law? Heir. Wait, Qiuyue? Zhu Dafu and the others looked at Qiuyue. Even if this Bian guy was bought by someone else, he was still a servant. How dare he call Qiuyue by her name? Qiuyue raised her eyebrows and heard Bian Han continue, I know that the doctor who treated my legs previously was instructed by you to deliberately not heal my legs. You wanted to see us suffer. But you're my sister-in-law after all, my wife's biological sister. Furthermore, you cured my fever and let me live. We're still grateful to you. After this farewell, your sisterhood with Dafeng will be severed. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. It's good to be strangers when we meet again. Even if we're on the verge of death and lose our limbs, we definitely won't ask you to save us again. After all, I don't want to see Dafeng tortured by you until she begs for death several times. Let's not meet again. With that, he lowered the curtain and the carriage slowly walked forward, leaving the people of the Zhou mansion standing at the door as if they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies were stiff and they could not come back to their senses. Qiuyue was probably the only one who was trembling slightly and screaming in her heart that it was over. Zhu Dafu slowly turned around and looked at her with an unfamiliar gaze. After a long time, he asked with a dry throat, the man called you sister-in-law? Has your brother-in-law? The Qiuyue woman is your sister? Yes, the Qiuyue family. Your surname is Qiuyue. Zhu Dafu suddenly stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. Is what he said true? Are they your sister and brother-in-law? Not only did you get someone to deliberately not treat his legs, but you also made them become your servants and tortured them in all kinds of ways. Is that right? Qiuyue couldn't say a word, but Mrs. Zhu was overjoyed. Ha 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 ha, the heavens really opened their eyes. A person who could even treat her sister and brother-in-law so ruthlessly deserved retribution. The voices behind them became noisy, but Yundong, who was in the carriage, smiled slightly. Bian Han exhaled slowly and asked her, was I right just now? Yundong raised his brows. That's right, but uncle, was it really Qiuyue who deliberately did not treat your legs back then? Bian Han looked at his useless legs and smiled bitterly. He nodded. At first, I didn't know either. I thought that my leg injury was really too serious and couldn't be treated. Later on, I accidentally heard that this was Qiyue's order. Yundong also looked at his leg. Uncle, you don't have to worry. Let's find another doctor to take a look. If it can be treated, well treat it. If it can't be treated, we can buy you a wheelchair for you to go out. You have skills. Those wooden carvings are very beautiful. Life is not a problem at all. Bian Han couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. Yundong, you don't have to comfort me. It's been more than a year since my legs became like this. Those bad thoughts have long passed. I won't take things too hard anymore. The most difficult days are over. There's nothing to be afraid of now. Dai Wenhua nodded. Well said. Bian Han quickly turned around when he heard the voice. Thank you for your help today, young Master Dai. I just don't know. He was a little curious about the relationship between Yundong and this young Master Dai. Dai Wenhua could tell at a glance. He immediately waved his hand and said in disdain, I'm friends with her fiancé. I helped her on account of him. Yundong did not deny it. She did not tell Bian Han Dai Wenhuo's identity to prevent him from feeling uncomfortable. The carriage arrived at the entrance of the inn not long after. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:11, Husband and Wife Reunion. Xuerong had been waiting at the door. When he saw their carriage stop, he hurriedly ran forward. Dai Wenhua instructed Dai Zhong and Xuerong to carry Bian Han down. Then, he said to Yundong, since the matter is settled, I'll go back first. Tell Shao Qingyuan that he'll look for him another day. Yundong nodded. Thank you for today. Goodbye. With that, she led the way into the inn. Dajiang and his sister had been waiting anxiously. After such a long time, no one had returned. They were afraid that Yundong would be troubled by the Zhou family and could not bring Bian out. It was only when they heard footsteps outside the door that the two of them looked at each other and hurriedly opened the door. Dafeng immediately saw Bian being carried and her eyes turned red. She quickly walked over. "Father, you're back. Yundong brought you back." "Yes, I'm back. I'm back." Bian was also so excited that his hands were trembling. Only at this moment, when he saw his wife, who was also safe and sound, and Dajiang, who was standing there with slightly red eyes and a smile, did he believe that all of this was not a dream. He was so excited that he was incoherent. "It's all thanks to Yundong. I'm fine. We're all fine." Dajiang hurriedly moved aside. "Come in first. It's not a place to talk outside." Yes. "Come in first." Dafeng wiped her face and helped the person on the stretcher in. After entering the door, she exclaimed in surprise, "Where's Yundong?" Yundong, who had been standing at the side and felt that she had a strong presence, was speechless. On the other hand, Dajiang recognized her at a glance. He smiled and pushed her. "Why are you dressed like this?" Dafeng was surprised. Yundong spoke and his voice instantly became familiar. For the sake of the situation, Qiuyue and Zhou Dafu didn't realize that I had also entered the Zhou mansion. "I'll talk about it slowly after this matter. Let's put Uncle down first." After placing her on the bed, Zhong took his leave. Yundong gave Shuirong some instructions before he left. Only 4 people were left in the room. Dafeng was still emotionally unstable. She grabbed Bian's hand and cried tears of joy. Father Bian patted her. "It's all right. Aren't we already out? We won't go in again." "Yes, eldest aunt, it's all in the past." As Yundong spoke, she took out 2 pieces of paper. "This is the indenture of the 2 of you. Tomorrow, we will go to the government office to eliminate this slave status. You will still be the same as before." Yundong looked at the 2 of them and felt a little sad. In her impression, eldest aunt used to be a straightforward person. She was the eldest sister and had Dajiang under her. Although she was only 3 years older than Dajiang, she had already taken on the responsibility of taking care of and protecting her younger brother. But now, not only was she extremely haggard, but her personality had also become trembling. From escaping to being separated from her children, to her husband's crippled legs, and finally being tortured and humiliated by Qiuyue, reality forced her to change time and time again in order to survive. She had no choice but to be careful. Dajiang couldn't help but tug at his fingers. The atmosphere became a little heavy. Fortunately, Shuirong returned very quickly and brought back the doctor from the clinic next door. Dafeng was stunned when she saw the doctor and looked at Yundong. The latter nodded. "The most important thing now is to treat Uncle's legs. Let's see how badly injured he is. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 8:12. There are always many ways. Dafeng stepped back and looked at the old doctor expectantly. The old doctor had already asked Shuirong about the situation before he came. He knew that the patient in front of him had been delayed for a year, so he could not help but be more cautious. He squatted down and carefully touched Bian's legs. Then, he checked his pulse and finally lifted his pants to take a look. After a while, under everyone's nervous gazes, he shook his head slightly. "I'm not good at medicine. I can't do anything about this patient's legs." Seeing that everyone's eyes instantly dimmed, the old doctor quickly said, "However, it's not completely impossible to cure him. If you're capable, you can bring him to other medical centers." Yundong thought of the old doctor's clinic. It was indeed not big and there were only 2 doctors in charge. It was still much worse than Huimin Medical Center. Thus, after Shuirong sent the old doctor away, Yundong comforted the 2 of them. "I know Dr. He from Huimin Medical Center. His medical skills are very good, and his medical ethics are also very good. Although he seemed to be good at brain acupuncture, he could introduce them to reliable specialists. But the Huimin Medical Center is a little far from here. I'm afraid it's too late to go there now. Let's go back and rest for a day. After we recover, we'll go to the medical center tomorrow to see the doctor there. That's right. Qiuyue Dajiang nodded. We've only seen one doctor. If one doesn't work, we'll see two. If two don't work, we'll see three. If you can't be treated in Xuanhe Prefecture, there's still the capital. Qiuyue Dafeng was finally amused by the father and daughter's anxious comfort. All right, capital. That's far from us. You make it sound like you can go there casually. Qiuyue Dafeng used to come from a village. At most, she had been to the county city. She had only gone to the prefectural city after fleeing the wilderness. She had come all the way to the Xuanhe Prefecture. However, her thoughts were still the same as before. In the countryside, when she was seriously ill, she would at most go to the county city to look for a doctor. If others said that she could not be treated, she would most likely go back and wait to die. Qiuyue Dafeng would not be satisfied, but at most, she would go to the prefectural city to treat his husband's illness. She had never thought of going to a place as far away as the capital. That was simply impossible for them. At most, she would do more work in the future and take good care of her husband. However, Qiuyue Dajiang was different. He was currently studying at Tianhai Academy. Ignoring everything else, the students he knew came from many places. There was no lack of rich children from the capital who came to study. Moreover, it was not as if he did not know anyone in the capital. Last time he helped Commander Zhou catch the bandits. Commander Zhou had gone to the capital. He would thicken his skin and beg him later. The man was a friendly person and would definitely help find a doctor. Most importantly, his Yundong was capable enough to know the imperial physician, Song Dejiang. Look, there were still many ways. Anyway, you don't have to worry too much. There will be a way. Our Liu Niang will go to the capital to treat her illness later. The doctor said that she lacks an herb now. As long as we find it, Liu Niang's brain disease will be cured. Hearing him mention Madame Yang, Qiuyue Dafeng was slightly stunned. Previously, she had been thinking about Bian Han and couldn't calm down to chat with Qiuyue Dajiang. Hence, she didn't know what was going on with the Qiuyue family. Now that he mentioned it, she could not help but ask, is Liu Niang at home? What about Yunshu and Yunke? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:13, Yuanzhi is still alive. Qiuyue Dajiang sat down and didn't hide it from her. It's all thanks to Yundong that Liu Niang is at home. Actually, I only found them a few months ago. To be honest, I was already prepared for the worst. I didn't expect Yundong to protect her mother and younger siblings. Only then did our family reunite. Qiuyue Dafeng was very happy to hear that. That's good, that's good. You're all safe and sound. That's better than anything. Bian Han also nodded repeatedly, but, his children. He gently tugged at his hand and secretly took a few deep breaths. Finally, he raised his head and asked with difficulty, Dajiang, do you know anything about Mulan and her brother? Qiuyue Dafeng also looked at him instantly. She had wanted to ask him for a long time, but she was afraid. Qiuyue Dajiang fell silent, and Qiuyue Yundong turned her head away slightly. Seeing this, Qiuyue Dafeng and her husband understood everything. Their eyes immediately turned red and swollen as tears streamed down their faces. They shouldn't have asked. Indeed, they shouldn't have asked. Qiuyue Yundong could not bear it. Aunt, it's all right, I know. Qiuyue Dafeng waved her hand. We've already made preparations. There's nothing to eat and very little water for such a long journey. As she spoke, she choked up. There are robbers and murderers everywhere on the road. It wasn't easy for us to reach Qingyuan Prefecture, but we still encountered trouble. Their chances of survival were not high. We all know that. Qiuyue Yundong slowly squatted down and handed her a handkerchief. She said in a low voice, Aunt, cousin Mulan is indeed gone. As soon as she confirmed this, Qiuyue Dafeng cried out. She could not take it anymore and started crying. Qiuyue Yundong let her vent her frustration and gently patted her back. After a long time, her crying gradually turned into sobs. She clearly wanted to try her best to control them, but it was especially difficult. Qiuyue Dajiang looked at Qiuyue Yundong in disagreement, but the latter insisted that she should tell her aunt about cousin Mulan first. Letting her cry was better than anything else. Bian Han's pain was much more restrained. Although he was also crying, his voice was still suppressed. He reached out and patted the back of Qiuyue Dafeng's hand. "Stop crying. Let's not cry anymore. I feel terrible. I feel terrible. Children died before their parents. Her 2 children were still so young. How could they be gone? How could they be gone? But Aunt, Yuanzhi is still alive." "What did you say?" Qiuyue Dafeng raised her head abruptly. She felt like she was hallucinating. Bian Han also looked at Qiuyue Yundong in surprise. Qiuyue Yundong said, "Yuanzhi is still here. He was brought back to Yongning Prefecture by the Ding family. I brought him here. He's in the prefectural city now. We'll be able to see him when we go back later." "Ah, really? Are you serious?" Qiuyue Dafeng grabbed Qiuyue Yundong's shoulder. The anticipation in her eyes made her exert force. Qiuyue Yundong did not feel any pain. She just smiled and nodded. "It's true. He's in the prefectural city. He's alive. Yuanzhi is still alive. He is still alive." There were still tears in Qiuyue Dafeng's eyes as she looked at Father Bian, who was trembling with excitement. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her mood fluctuated. A moment ago, she felt that the sky was about to collapse. Now, she was told that Yuanzhi was still around. In the end, the couple hugged each other and cried. It was almost dark when Qiuyue Yundong brought the 2 of them into the carriage and went home. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 814, Family Reunion. Yes, home. After being separated for more than a year, they could finally go home. The carriage rumbled all the way to the small courtyard. Qiuyue Dafeng and Bian Han, who were in the carriage, were much calmer. However, at this moment, they still clasped their hands tightly, nervous and expectant. It was not until the carriage stopped at the door that the waiter entered that they looked at each other and alighted from the carriage. Shuirong wanted to carry Bian Han, but he was stopped by Qiuyue Dajiang. He bent his back and carried Bian Han down from the carriage. Qiuyue Dafeng stood at the entrance. She clenched her fists and secretly took a deep breath. The door was opened from the inside. Lu Sheng quickly helped remove the threshold and let the carriage in. The people in the house heard the commotion and there was a series of banging sounds. Immediately after, someone ran out quickly. As he ran, he shouted, "Father, eldest sister, you actually went out early in the morning. You didn't wait for us to wake up. You're too bad. Eldest uncle, cousin, we got to know many people today. There are really students nearby. They even said that Tianhai Academy is very beautiful. Can we go tomorrow?" Qiuyue Yunqi's legs were short and she ran slowly. She shouted as she struggled to rush out, "Slow down. Wait for me, or I'll be angry." The few of them rushed out. Yunshu immediately ran in front of Qiuyue Yundong and did not have time to see the others clearly. Bian Yuanzhi, on the other hand, was a step too late and shifted his gaze to the side. Then, he was stunned. He looked at the familiar figure who always appeared in his dreams standing beside Qiuyue Yundong. He looked at the man who was lying beside Qiuyue Dajiang and looking at him eagerly. His expression became dazed. Qiuyue Dafeng and Bian Han had already washed up before they came back. Although they looked thinner and haggard, as their son, how could Bian Yuanzhi not know them? He staggered and was almost knocked down by Yunke, who rushed out from behind. The young lady quickly stopped in her tracks. "Cousin Yuanzhi, although I told you to slow down, you don't have to stop." However, Bian Yuanzhi didn't seem to hear him. He just stared ahead with tears in his eyes. The little girl turned around and saw large drops of tears falling from his eyes. She was shocked on the spot. Eldest sister, cousin," he cried because of me." Qiuyue Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry, but because of this sentence, Qiuyue Dafeng rushed forward and hugged Bian Yuanzhi. Yuanzhi, I finally see you." Bian Yuanzhi's hands were trembling and he did not dare to touch her. He heard Qiuyue Dafeng's hoarse sobbing. He looked up at Qiuyue Yundong in confusion, as if he wanted to ask her if it was true. Qiuyue Yundong stepped forward and patted the confused Qiuyue Yanqi's head. She whispered to Bian Yuanzhi, "You're not dreaming. Your parents have been found and they are back." Bian Yuanzhi's tears fell even harder. He reached out his hands and hugged Qiuyue Dafeng's neck. Finally, he raised his head and cried, "Father, Mother, where did you go? Where did you go? I thought I would never see you again in my life. I was so afraid. I was so afraid that you would leave me behind." Qiuyue Dafeng hugged his small body and swayed slightly. "Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm here. I won't let go of your hand again. Don't be afraid." Bian Yuanzhi cried even harder. Bian Han lay on Qiuyue Dajang's body and really wanted to go over and hug the mother and son. However, he had no choice but to wipe his tears and laugh. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:15, Yuanzhi needs father and mother. When the mother and son were done crying, Qiuyue Dafeng finally stood up with Bian Yuanzhi in her arms. She was too thin and weak. When she got up, she felt a little dizzy. Qiuyue Yundong quickly reached out to support her and said, "Let's go in first." "Okay, let's go in first." The few of them entered the central room and sat down. Qiuyue Yunke opened her round eyes and looked curiously at eldest Aunt Qiuyue. She was also extremely sad from Bian Yuanzhi's crying just now. After crying for a while, her eyes were still sparkling. Qiuyue Yunshu had some impression of his eldest aunt and uncle, so he obediently went over to greet them. Seeing this, Qiuyue Yunke obediently greeted them under eldest sister's introduction. Qiuyue Dafeng looked at the well-behaved children and felt her heart heat up. She said "I" a few times. Bian Yuanzhi was still in her arms. He had cried too hard just now and had yet to recover. Coupled with the fact that he had just met his parents after a long time, he only wanted to be an insensible child who refused to let go of his parents. It wasn't until a pair of hands appeared on his head that he slowly raised his head and looked at Bian Han. "Father," Qiuyue Dajang placed Bian Han on the chair beside him. He looked at his son, who had grown much taller than a year ago, and felt especially grateful. Bian Yuanzhi slowly calmed down. However, when his gaze shifted to Bian Han's legs, he suddenly stopped. "Father, your legs, I'm fine. I just suffered a small injury." Bian Han didn't want him to worry too much, so he casually said. Then, he changed the topic. "Yuanzhi has already grown up." Father almost couldn't recognize him. "I haven't grown up yet. Yuanzhi still needs parents." Qiuyue Dafeng almost cried again. She felt extremely guilty and self-reproachful. It was the same for Bian Han. If he had dodged in time, his legs wouldn't have been injured, and he wouldn't have had to ask Qiuyue for help because of his fever. He wouldn't have been trapped in the Zhou mansion. Otherwise, he would have brought his wife back to Yongning Prefecture and reunited with his son. He was disappointing. "All right, stop crying. Look at all of you. Your eyes are swollen tomorrow. Hurry up and wipe your faces. Let's eat first." Qiuyue Dajang interrupted the sad atmosphere and asked Auntie Nyo to serve the food. The Qiuyue family had always made a lot of dinner. Auntie Nyo's status in the previous master's family was not high, so she did not have the chance to show off her culinary skills. After arriving at the Qiuyue family, she could finally show off her skills. Especially since Miss did not hide anything and told her the cooking methods of several dishes, Auntie Nyo was the happiest in the kitchen every day. Especially since the master's family had returned yesterday. Unfortunately, they came back late and she did not have time to prepare many dishes. Coincidentally, she would make more today. Hence, with the addition of Qiuyue Dafeng and her husband, the food on the table was still more than enough. The family had just walked to the reception hall and sat down when they heard the news that Shao Qingyuan was back. Qiuyue Dafeng didn't know about Shao Qingyuan. She just looked up and saw a tall figure step into the door. Qiuyue Yundong stood up to welcome him. "I thought you wouldn't come over because of the pharmacy's business today. Come over for dinner. I still have to go over later." After Shao Qingyuan finished speaking, he saw two unfamiliar figures. Qiuyue Yundong quickly introduced them to each other. Upon hearing that it was eldest aunt Qiuyue and her husband, Shao Qingyuan revealed a rare look of surprise. "You've finally found them?" "Yes, I'll tell you about this later." Shao Qingyuan nodded and quickly went forward to greet the two elders. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 8:16. Please feed them. Jiyu Dafeng looked at the young man in front of her and was still in a daze. Yundong was engaged. On the other hand, Bianhan had already learned from Dai Wenhua that Jiyu Yundong had a fiancé. When he saw Shao Qingyuan, he sized him up. This man was indeed a handsome and elegant man. Moreover, he seemed to think highly of Jiyu Yundong. The two of them didn't know where Shao Qingyuan was from or what was going on at home. However, now wasn't the time to ask. After everyone got to know each other, they sat down to eat. Eldest Aunt Qiuyue ate a bowl of porridge at noon. Bianhan also ate half a bowl after being brought to the inn. At this moment, she was a little hungry. However, when she was in the Zhou family, hunger had become a common occurrence. She was already used to it. Looking at the table full of dishes, the two of them were a little stunned. Not to mention the hunger in the Zhou mansion, even before they fled, they had never eaten such a sumptuous dinner. Her eldest brother's current life was already so good. Jiyu Dajiang moved his chopsticks first. "Don't just stand there. Let's eat. We'll talk after we're done." Jiyu Yundong asked Aunt Niu to bring 2 bowls of porridge over. She brought them to eldest Aunt Qiuyue and Father Bian and said, "The doctor said that your stomachs are not good now and you need to recuperate first. It's not appropriate for you to eat too much oil or salt. Therefore, I'll get Aunt Niu to make easy-to-digest food these few days. Porridge, noodles, and so on. Let your stomachs recover first." Bian Yuanzhi, who was putting food into his parents' bowls, immediately dropped his chopsticks and went towards the vegetables. As Jiyu Dafeng listened, she felt that Yundong had really changed a lot. He was considerate and capable. The porridge and noodles were already very good. In the past, when she was at home, she would eat rough noodles and steamed buns for almost every meal. She had to eat them with soup. Looking at the porridge in front of them, they felt like they were living the life of a rich family. Hence, she nodded. "Okay, I'll listen to Yundong." Bianhan also smiled. Unexpectedly, when the two of them turned around, they realized that their bowls were filled with vegetables. When they looked at Bian Yuanzhi, he was looking at them with a look of praise. Not only him, but even Yunshu and Yunke looked the same. Clearly, they had also picked up a lot of food for them. Jiyu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Yuanzhi, although it's said that you can't eat fish or meat with a good stomach, it doesn't mean that you can only eat vegetables. Those shredded meat are not a problem." Bian Yuanzhi immediately felt embarrassed. Yunshu and Yunke looked at each other and picked up their chopsticks to pick up the meat again. Jiyu Dafeng quickly stopped her. That's enough. Stop eating. Everyone still wants to eat." Only then did the children stop and obediently eat their food. Only Bian Yuanzhi looked at his parents with admiration, as if he would be full just by watching them eat. Jiyu Dafeng's heart ached and swelled. When she was half full, she put down her chopsticks and fed her son. Although Bian Yuanzhi felt a little embarrassed as he had grown up, he still opened his mouth obediently and ate the food his mother fed him. Jiyu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. Although they did not treat Yuanzhi as an outsider, they were not his parents after all. Therefore, Yuanzhi was usually very sensible. He would consider everything carefully and not cause trouble for them. It was probably only in front of his parents that he could act like a child so brazenly. Yunshu looked at it and thought for a moment. He looked at his mother, but Madame Yang looked at Jiyu Dajiang as if she wanted to ask for food too. Jiyu Yundong was speechless. She did not see anything. Chapter 8:17, Shao Qingyuan's news. What surprised Jiyu Yundong was the youngest, Jiyu Yunke. The little girl was enjoying her meal. From time to time, she would look up at her second brother and cousin with obvious disdain. Despicable. Jiyu Yundong was stunned. After the little girl finished the food in her bowl, she said proudly, "I'm done. Second brother, come here. I'll feed you." Yunshu, Dajiang was speechless. Shao Qingyuan, Yundong was speechless. Fortunately, she had swallowed the food in her mouth. Otherwise, she would have spat it out. Yunshu quickly lowered his head. He did not hear her. Only Madame Yang paused and silently handed her bowl and chopsticks to Yunke. "Keek." Dajiang quickly stopped her. "Liu Niang, why do you want Keek to feed you?" Madame Yang said, "Feeding seems to make the food taste better." "No, that's just your imagination." On the other hand, Bian Yuanzhi was a little embarrassed. Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry as he diverted Madame Yang's attention. "Mother, if you don't eat now, your favorite sour and spicy lotus root will be gone." When Madame Yang heard this, she quickly put away the bowl and stopped talking about feeding. Only then did everyone look away. Yuanzhi stayed in Dafeng's arms and leaned against her. It was only when Yunshu and Yunke had finished eating and called him to come down that he reluctantly got off the bed and said to Dafeng, "Father, Mother, I'll help Auntie Nyo tidy up the room. Can I sleep with you tonight?" "Of course you can." Bian Yuanzhi then dragged his cousins out. It was only when the three of them left the reception hall that they felt a little more at ease talking. At the mention of Bian Han's legs, Shao Qingyuan, who had been silent, suddenly asked, "Are Uncle's legs very serious?" Dajiang glanced at him. He was climbing up the ladder quite quickly. He was calling Bian Han uncle just like that. Bian Han had already gotten over it. He touched his legs and said, "They're quite serious, but it doesn't matter if the legs can't be cured. Just as Yundong said, I can still do some carpentry." Mrs. Ren sold wooden carvings. "It seems that business is quite good." "It's good that you think that way," Dajiang said. "But let's try visiting a few more medical centers. As long as there's a glimmer of hope, we won't give up." Dajiang was a man. He knew very well that as the head of the family, Bian Han might sound relaxed, but he actually felt terrible. He wanted to take on the responsibility of a husband and father, not a burden to these two. Wooden carvings could indeed bring income to the family, but it was still inconvenient to live. He still had to rely on his wife and son. If this continued, he would still feel defeated. "Let's go to Huimin Medical Center tomorrow," Yundong said. Shao Qingyuan lowered his eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, "Huimin Medical Center is indeed the largest medical center in Xuanhe Prefecture, but according to what I know, a doctor who is good at treating legs and bones recently went to the medical center in Wanqing Prefecture. He was in the medicinal herb business now, so he had more contact with the medical center and was well informed." Wanqing Prefecture's medical center? Why did he go there? Shao Qingyuan thought for a moment. To be the doctor in charge. Yundong choked. The Xin family used to live in Wanqing Prefecture, so the branch of Huimin Medical Center was not opened there. Now that the Xin family had fallen, they immediately opened a branch there. However, it seemed that they had limited manpower, so they brought the doctors there. "Then what should we do?" Dafeng asked worriedly. Chapter 8:18, Shao Qingyuan has a candidate. Shao Qingyuan had already put down his chopsticks. Hearing this, he said, "I have a candidate here." "Who?" Dafeng asked anxiously. "I'm opening a pharmacy in the prefectural city. I need a doctor to preside over the shop." Shao Qingyuan looked at Yundong. "I've already told you that I've found a doctor. He happens to be good at this. If you think it's okay, I'll bring him over tomorrow to take a look at eldest uncle." The doctor had already arrived at the prefectural city and was now living in the courtyard behind the medicine shop. However, the pharmacy was still being repaired, so it was still a little noisy during the day. Shao Qingyuan gave the old doctor silver, so that he could go to any tea house to drink tea, listen to books, or go to a beautiful pavilion to play with birds with other old men. However, the doctor was not interested in these things. After he came to the prefectural city, he went to the nearest medical center to discuss medicine with them. Today was the first day. It was said that he had been scolded. When the old doctor returned, he complained to Shao Qingyuan that lousy medical center was not good at all. The doctors inside were useless and arrogant. Qingyuan suggested that he go to Huimin Medical Center to take a look. The old doctor planned to go there tomorrow. But there were patients here, he thought. The old doctor would definitely be more willing to treat people. Qingyuan had always been reliable. Yundong knew that if that doctor did not have any ability, he would definitely not have suggested it. Therefore, her eyes immediately lit up. Without thinking, she said, "All right, then bring him over tomorrow." With the matter settled, the few of them heaved a sigh of relief. After dinner, Qingyuan went back. The small courtyard was not very large. There were only a few rooms. It was already a little crowded for Yuanzhi and Yunshu to come, let alone eldest Aunt Qiuyue and her husband. Since there was no place for Qingyuan to stay, he had to return to the pharmacy. After he left, Qiuyue let the two of them rest. After a long day, their emotions fluctuated. They cried and laughed at the same time, and most of their energy had disappeared. They were indeed very tired. She returned to her room and slept on the soft bed. Her son also returned to her side and lay between the two of them. Even though she was very tired, she could not fall asleep. After a long time, Bian sighed. "I didn't expect to leave the Zhou residence and see Yuanzhi again." Qiuyue nodded. She really thought that she would be busy in the Zhou mansion for the rest of her life and be tortured by Qiuyue until the day she died. Yuanzhi was sleeping in the middle. He looked at his parents and smiled in satisfaction. Qiuyue reached out and rubbed his head. "Yuanzhi, tell father and mother how you've been living for the past year. Also, your sister." At the mention of Bian, Yuanzhi was still very sad. He whispered about what happened after he was separated from them. From the moment Bian couldn't take it anymore and entrusted him to the Ding family before she died, to the time when the Ding family was unwilling to continue raising him and sent him to the old Qiuyue family in Qiuyue village. As for his days in the Qiuyue family, he did not elaborate. However, Qiuyue had long known what the old Qiuyue family was like. She also knew how difficult Yuanzhi's life was. Later on, Yundong came to the Qiuyue village and deliberately plotted for the Ding family to bring him out of the old Qiuyue family. His difficult days finally ended. In the end, Yundong went to the place where Bian had died. She moved her urn out and brought it back to Yongfu village for burial. Speaking of this, the family felt sad again and cried fiercely. Chapter 8:19, Those Things. At this moment, Qiuyue was especially grateful to Yundong. "Your cousin has really done too much for us." "Yes, my cousin is very powerful." On the way to escape, Aunt and Yunshu and Yunke came to Yongfu village under my cousin's protection. Eldest uncle was also found by my cousin. My cousin does many more things. Speaking of Yundong, Yuanzhi's eyes were filled with admiration. Qiuyue and Bian looked at each other lovingly. "Yes, you have to be as good as your cousin in the future." Yuanzhi nodded hurriedly and began to talk about the days when he came to Yongfu village. He said that he met Yunshu's teacher as soon as he arrived in the county city. Then, his cousin asked the teacher to take him in as a student. Qiuyue and her husband were stunned. "What did you say? You went to school?" "Yes, my cousin said that you don't have to take the imperial examination, but you have to know how to read. If you study hard, your future will definitely not be bad. I'm studying in the county school with Yunshu now. Our teacher is very impressive. He used to be the top scholar and has very strict requirements for accepting students. Yunshu studied well and was chosen by the teacher. However, I don't even know how to read, so my cousin spent a lot of effort to get the teacher to accept me." Yundong expressed that she did not. Qiuyue and her husband were stunned. Although Yundong had told them some things today, she had never mentioned that Yuanzhi was going to study in a school. Moreover, this school was not one of the small private schools in the village. The teacher was a big shot. Qiuyue was speechless. Who would have thought that Yundong would give Yuanzhi what she wanted to offer but could not afford? Yuanzhi was still talking. He said that the Qiuyue family now had a workshop in Yongfu village and had more than 100 long-term workers. He also mentioned that there was a shop in the county city. Not long ago, she had opened a shop in the prefectural city and a milk tea shop with someone. It was also said that eldest uncle had entered the best school in the Xuanhe prefecture to study and had been personally assessed by the mountain elder. The person who introduced him was the top scholar of their school. He also said that Shao Qingyuan was highly skilled in martial arts. When Shao Qingyuan was questioned by eldest uncle, he stood at the entrance motionlessly under the sun and rain. Shao Qingyuan treated his cousin and treated them very well. He even said that his cousin had made super delicious cake and candy. Not only did they like it, but even their classmates liked it. He also talked about many things that he had experienced after coming to Yongfu village. Qiuyue Dafeng and her husband were shocked at first, but then they became numb. They felt that many things in their minds had been overturned. They could tell that their eldest brother's family already had some assets now. If their eldest brother could afford a carriage and servants, their lives would definitely be worlds apart from before. However, the difference was not to this extent. Why did it sound like their eldest brother was even more powerful than the Zhou mansion that trapped them and made them tremble in fear? The impact was a little huge, and the couple could not maintain their expressions. In the end, Yuanzhi was too tired and fell asleep as he spoke. Only then did the two of them close their eyes and fall asleep. It was probably because they slept too late and had not slept so peacefully for a long time, so they woke up a little late the next day. The Qiuyue family did not disturb them. It was only when Shao Qingyuan brought the old doctor and shouted for the patient the moment he entered that the family of three got up. The three of them immediately felt a little embarrassed and quickly got up to leave. When they came out, everyone saw that their eyes were red and swollen. They knew that they must have cried again last night, so no one said anything. Chapter 820, Dr. Xiong. The old doctor's surname was Xiong, and he had a bear-like temper. However, he was a very professional doctor. He could not wait to see the patient before he finished his tea. Looking at him, Yundong thought of Song De Jiang. Were all capable and confident doctors so strange? However, she insisted that Bian finish his breakfast before going to the doctor. Dr. Xiong was a little unhappy at first, but when he heard that the other party's stomach was not good, he immediately waved his hand and asked him to hurry up and eat. When they finished eating and started to look at his legs, the family began to prepare for battle. Dr. Xiong washed his hands and quickly sat opposite Bian. Seeing that his entire body was tense, he hurriedly waved his hand. Relax, relax. It's just a look. The treatment hasn't started yet, and it won't hurt. It's too early to be nervous. Bian laughed at his words and relaxed at that moment. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Dr. Xiong knocked on his leg. He didn't know where it hit. Although it was just a light knock, it immediately hurt so much that tears were about to come out, and cold sweat kept flowing out. The others' hearts tightened. Yuanzhi hugged Dr. Xiong's hand. Don't hit me. It hurts too much. Dr. Xiong's mouth twitched. Then do you still want me to treat your father's legs? Yundong was not good at medicine, but she knew that she could not disturb the doctor's treatment, so she pulled Yuanzhi over. Only then did Dr. Xiong continue to check. Bian's nerves tensed up again, afraid that he would do it again. However, Dr. Xiong did not do anything unexpected after that. After checking the legs, he retracted his hand and lowered his head in thought. Everyone looked at him, but no one said anything to disturb him. However, his silence made people a little anxious. It was Shao Qingyuan who asked him, "Can the legs be treated?" Oh, they can be treated. Really? Qiuyue Dafeng was instantly excited. She clenched her fists and looked at Bian. Father, did you hear that? Dr. Xiong said it can be treated. Bian nodded repeatedly. How could he not be happy that his legs could be cured? Then, Dr. Xiong, what do we need to prepare? Do we start treating him now? Qiuyue Dajiang was equally excited. Dr. Xiong glanced at everyone and said, whether the legs can be treated or not, we still have to ask for his opinion. What do you mean? His legs can be treated, but it's painful to treat them. I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand it. How so? Dr. Bear shrugged. First, we'll have to break his bones again, then set them back together. Break his bones again? Everyone gasped. Qiuyue Dafeng recalled the miserable cry of pain when her husband's legs were broken by a horse. Her face instantly turned pale, and her body trembled slightly. Others might not know, but Qiuyue Dafeng did. Although Bian Han was a man, he was actually especially afraid of pain. Dr. Xiong could also see this. The light tap just now was enough to make Bian Han break out in cold sweat and tremble in pain. The pain of having his bones broken again was really unbearable for him. Father Bian did tremble a little, but he looked at his legs and thought of his wife's and children's lives in the future. He gritted his teeth and said, "No, it's okay. If you want to break the legs again, so be it. I can endure it." He could endure it. His voice was trembling. Bian Han took a deep breath and looked at everyone's worried gazes. Finally, his gaze landed on Dr. Xiong. He closed his eyes and said, Come, let's break them." Dr. Xiong was speechless. Now is not the time. Chapter 821, Warm and Harmonious Atmosphere. Everyone was stunned again. Why? His body is still too weak now. Didn't you just say that his stomach isn't good either? At the very least, we have to wait until his body recovers and his spirit is strong before I can start treating him. Wouldn't that mean that he would have to worry for a while? Bian Han trembled again. However, he still had to listen to the doctor. Dr. Xiong continued, "Rest well during this period of time. I'll come to see you in a few days. When I think your body is good enough, well, treat your legs." All right. Bian Han looked at Qiuyue Dafeng, looking like he wanted to cry but had no tears. Qiuyue Dafeng hesitated a few times, but she could not say anything. After seeing Qiuyue Dafeng, Dr. Xiong took her pulse and confirmed that she was also weak and needed to recuperate with Bian Han. Then, he prescribed a few medicinal cuisines and got someone to make them for them. Qiuyue Yundong was surprised. This Dr. Xiong was indeed very capable. He actually knew medicinal cuisine. After the matter was resolved, Dr. Xiong left the Qiuyue family, leaving the entire family behind. They did not know if they should be happy or worried. However, the medicinal cuisines that Dr. Xiong mentioned needed to be studied carefully. Auntie Nyo took the list. Still, she couldn't read very well, especially since Dr. Xiong's handwriting was flamboyant. It looked too strenuous. Qiuyue Yundong could only follow her into the kitchen. Coincidentally, she was also very interested in the medicinal cuisines. As for the shop, she would go there another day. Her aunt's matter was more important, right? Shao Qingyuan followed the instructions on the list and grabbed the herbs. Then, he taught her how to recognize the words while watching her cook medicinal cuisines. After clarifying that, he left. Qiuyue Dafeng felt bad. She felt that she should help. However, she was worried that she would be clumsy and waste all the ingredients and herbs. She could only help from the side. Yunshu, Yuanzhi, and the others had originally planned to go to Tianhai Academy today to take a look at the wall that was filled with names. Now, they didn't go anymore. The two of them surrounded Bian Han and chatted non-stop. They used clumsy words to comfort him not to worry. His legs would be cured. It warmed Bian Han's heart, as if he was really not afraid at all. On the other hand, Yunke was also looking around the kitchen. Qiuyue Yundong and Aunt Nyo were already used to it, but Qiuyue Dafeng was not used to it. He was afraid that she would be scalded and hurt. It was only when she saw her washing and picking the vegetables that she remembered what Yuanzhi had told him yesterday. The young lady liked to eat and cook. Madame Yang was taking care of the flower pots with Lu Hongxiu. She had been in Yongfu village for some time, as if she was afraid that something would happen to these flowers. She had already checked yesterday, but she was worried and checked again today. The entire small courtyard entered in a warm and harmonious atmosphere. Until Tong Shuidao returned. She went out early in the morning and only returned at noon. As soon as she entered, she went to the kitchen to look for Qiuyue Yundong. At the door, she cracked a few times, causing everyone in the kitchen to turn to look at her. The corners of Qiuyue Yundong's mouth twitched. "You can't be considered mysterious anymore, all right?" She put down the things in her hand, washed her hands, and followed her out. The two of them chatted at the side. Tong Shuidao looked mysterious. Qiuyue Dafeng shook her head and smiled. She continued with her work. However, Yundong did not return after a while. Auntie Nyo happened to have some words that she did not recognize and looked conflicted. Dafeng took the list and went out to look for Yundong. She did not expect them to be standing under the corridor talking. It seemed like she hadn't finished speaking when Dafeng suddenly heard the words Qiuyue. She could not help but be stunned. Chapter 822, Aunt Gus Concerns. Yundong also saw her. Coincidentally, Tong Shuidao had finished speaking. She instructed her to continue listening, so she turned around and asked, "Aunt, what's wrong? Why are you looking for me?" Dafeng retracted her thoughts and held the list in her hand. Auntie Nyo wanted to ask you what medicine this is." Yundong took it and walked in. After entering the kitchen and discussing with Auntie Nyo, she noticed that Dafeng had not entered yet. Stunned, she walked out again. "Aunt, what's wrong? I just heard Qiyue's name." Realization dawned on Yundong, and she answered straightforwardly, "Yes, I asked Shuidao to keep an eye on the Zhou residence and watch Qiyue's movements. Do you want to deal with her?" Yundong did not hide it from her and nodded. "She went too far. Yundong." Dafeng held her hand anxiously and said, "Forget it. Qiuyue is indeed not a good person. But no matter what motives she had back then, she saved our lives in the end. For the past year, I've been her slave for her. Take it as repayment for saving our lives. Now that your uncle and I have left the Zhou residence, we only want to have nothing to do with her from now on. Just pretend that you don't know her from now on. You don't have to." Dafeng knew that she did not know what was good for her. Yundong wanted to take revenge on Qiuyue for their sake. But Qiuyue was Old Master Zhou's concubine now. Old Master Zhou doted on her very much. What if he went against the Qiuyue family because of Qiuyue? Could it be that she would implicate them after being saved by her eldest brother? She felt that Yundong was very powerful after hearing what Yuanzhi said last night. However, Dafeng had never experienced it herself. She could not clearly understand how powerful Yundong was. However, she had stayed in the Zhou family for a year and had personally experienced how different the Zhou family was from the environment she used to be in. Yundong saw through Dafeng's concerns at a glance and understood her worries. Hence, she gently held her hand and smiled. "All right, then I'll listen to you and let the grudge between the two of you be written off." Yes, she was referring to the feud between eldest Aunt Qiuyue and Qiuyue. However, she didn't say that the grudge between her and Qiuyue didn't exist. Yundong did not forget how Qiuyue had conspired with Master Qian on the way to escape. She had gotten Fu Ming to lead them to chase after her family just to sell her and her younger siblings to Master Qian. That woman wanted them to live a life worse than death. At that time, Master Qian had chased after him with a group of people in a fierce manner, looking like he was determined to win. If not for the fact that she was smart and had a weapon in her hand, she would probably be in any brothel now. Her younger siblings might not even be alive. Was this something a biological aunt would do? Even a stranger would not be so vicious. Yundong did not forget that when his father met Qiuyue, she had deliberately misled him to Wanqing Prefecture. She had always remembered these grudges. Qiuyue didn't save her life, so there was no such thing as a clean slate. Previously, Yundong heard that she was already dead, so the hatred naturally dissipated. At most, Yundong would lament that the wicked would be punished by the heavens. This person had finally gotten her retribution. But wasn't she still alive now? Furthermore, she was living happily. She was living a better and richer life than before. She even took pleasure in torturing eldest Aunt Qiuyue and her husband. Then she had to settle the score properly. Chapter 823, Qiuyue's Amazing Operation. Seeing that she had agreed, eldest Aunt Qiuyue heaved a sigh of relief and smiled again. Yundong pulled her into the kitchen and got busy again. But to Yundong's surprise, before she could settle the score with Qiuyue, the woman came to find trouble. After Yundong found eldest Aunt Qiuyue, she forgot about the portraits on the notice wall and did not tear them off in time. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Wren tore off the 2 portraits and followed the address on them to Aunt Ku's house. She told Aunt Ku that she knew where the 2 of them were. Aunt Ku was stunned. She had gone to the small courtyard frequently, especially because she had not seen Yunshu and Yuanzhi for a long time. Therefore, on the 2nd and 3rd day after the Qiuyue family returned to the prefecture capital, she went to the small courtyard. Naturally, she knew about the joyous occasion of Yuanzhi and his parents reuniting. She had seen eldest Aunt Qiuyue and Bian before, so she more or less knew about their experiences. While feeling pity for her, she also scolded Qiuyue harshly. The person in front called herself Mrs. Wren. Could she be Mrs. Wren who was by Qiuyue's side that Yundong mentioned? Aunt Ku pondered in her heart. She did not know what she was up to, so she nodded without batting an eyelid, indicating that she would bring her to meet the real person who was looking for her. Mrs. Wren was a little surprised. She thought that the person who was looking for them was Aunt Ku, but she did not expect this to be just a place for contact. Why was the person behind this so mysterious? For a moment, Mrs. Wren thought too much. She felt that the person who had spent so much effort to find eldest Aunt Qiuyue and her husband probably had a feud with these 2 people. Otherwise, why would they go through so much trouble? Thinking of this possibility, Mrs. Wren began to get excited. She followed Aunt Ku to look for Yundong. On the way, she could not help but ask, "Sister, who is this person? What's their relationship with the person in this portrait? Who's your sister?" Aunt Ku's expression turned ugly. She looked at Mrs. Wren, who was at least 10 years older than her, and almost couldn't help but spit on her face. She replied impatiently, "Ask them when you see them." "I don't know." Mrs. Wren felt that this person was difficult to get along with, so the smile on her face disappeared and she snorted. Aunt Ku brought her directly to Gus. Yundong happened to be at Gus to look at the accounts and understand the recent income situation. Zheng complained at the side. "Many people say that we have too little goods here. There's not enough for them to eat at all. The people in this prefectural city are rich. When they buy things, they plan to buy baskets of goods. If we limit their purchases, they will scold us." It was too difficult for him. Yundong found it funny. "Thank you, Uncle Zheng. That's not a big deal. We won't lose a piece of meat even if they scold us. In any case, they'll still spend money to buy our things. However, boss, are we really not considering opening another shop in the west of the city? This place was too far from the west of the city. The people who came to buy things from there scolded the most fiercely. Yundong also wanted to open it, but her energy was limited. This milk tea shop had just opened not long ago, so she had to take it one step at a time. However, she could indeed get prepared first. If there was a suitable shop, she could buy it first. At this thought, Yundong instructed Zheng to be careful. Just as Zheng had agreed, 2 people came in. The person in front was Aunt Ku. Yundong immediately went up to her happily. "Aunt, why are you?" Before she could finish speaking, Aunt Ku took a step to the side, revealing Mrs. Wren's wrinkled face. Chapter 824. What's your relationship with the person in this painting? Yundong's smile froze. She frowned slightly and looked at Aunt Ku. The latter introduced with a gloating expression, "This is Mrs. Wren." She tore off the missing person portraits on the notice wall and said that she knew the whereabouts of the people on the portraits. "She specially came to tell us." Yundong was speechless. Yes, the portraits. She had forgotten to tear them off. However, Mrs. Wren actually wanted to tell her about the whereabouts of her eldest aunt and uncle. What kind of mess was this? Yundong thought for a while, then nodded at Mrs. Wren and said, "Come with me. Let's talk in the backyard." Mrs. Wren had just finished sizing up the shop in front of her and was thinking that this shop was quite big. Hearing Yundong's words, she quickly followed him with a smile. Aunt Ku also went to join in the fun. The 3 of them went to the backyard and sat on the stone bench. However, as soon as she sat down, Aunt Ku stood up. The weather was cold, and the stone stool was also cold. She went to the 2nd floor and took a cushion for herself. When Mrs. Wren saw this, she was a little envious. She was the oldest here and could not stand the cold the most. But since Qiuyue Yundong did not mention it and Aunt Ku only took one, she could not say anything. However, she did not know that Qiuyue Yundong had deliberately chosen this place. In any case, she did not want to bring the stranger up to the second floor to chat in such a good environment. She was wearing too many clothes and it was a little hot. It was good to have a breather. Su Changshan, on the other hand, did not know the inside story. He served tea to the three of them. Mrs. Wren took a sip and felt her body warm up. Qiuyue Yundong asked, "You said that you have news about the people on the portraits. Is that true? You're not lying to me." "No, no. How can this be a lie?" "That's hard to say," Qiuyue Yundong said lazily. Previously, there were several people who provided fake news for the bounties, making people happy for nothing. "I hope what you said is not fake, or I'll get someone to kick you out." Mrs. Wren trembled violently and immediately raised her right hand to make an oath. "I swear that what I said is true. If there's even half a lie, I'll be struck by lightning." Qiuyue Yundong raised her eyebrows. This woman was quite ruthless to herself. In order to make Qiuyue Yundong believe in her, Mrs. Wren quickly said, "The woman on this portrait is called Qiuyue Dafeng, right? The man is called Bian Han, right?" Qiuyue Yundong had more or less guessed what Mrs. Wren wanted to do. She was unhappy that Dai Wanhua had bought her aunt and uncle and wanted to make things difficult for them. It was a pity that neither she nor Qiuyue would be able to get what they wanted. At the thought of this, Qiuyue Yundong became slightly excited. He looked at Mrs. Wren with shining eyes. "Yes, yes, yes. That's her name. It seems that you really know where they are. Tell me, as long as the information you provide is true, I'll give you the bounty immediately." Mrs. Wren was also quite tempted by the bounty and immediately said, "Qiuyue Dafeng and Father Bian are now in Magistrate Dais residence. Young Master Dai bought them." Qiuyue Yundong's eyes lit up. "Really? You're not lying to me. They are in the Dai residence?" "Yes, every word is true." Qiuyue Yundong laughed out loud. "That's great, that's great." Aunt Ku raised her eyes slightly and snorted secretly. "A drama queen." Seeing that she seemed to be very happy, Mrs. Wren frowned slightly and asked softly, "Miss, can I ask you what their relationship is with you? Why did you spend such a high bounty to find them? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 825. Mrs. Wren takes a huge blow. Qiuyue Yundong was still smiling. Hearing this, he waved his hand and said it nonchalantly. "They're my aunt and uncle. I've been looking for them for more than a year. It's just that I haven't heard from them. Now, I finally have news. Thank you." As she spoke, she sounded a little sad. "I don't know if they've had a good year or if they've suffered, but it doesn't matter. Now that I've found them, I'll bring them home and definitely let them live a good life. Not to mention anything else, at least they won't have to worry about food and drinks. They'll have servants by their side to serve them. They'll be able to live a happy life after suffering." Mrs. Wren felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Aunt and uncle. And she wanted them to live a good life. Was this person the daughter of the Qiuyue family's first branch, as Concubine Qiuyue had said? Wren's mother felt sick. She shook her head in a daze. How could it be? How could it be? Why weren't they enemies? Actually, Qiuyue Yundong was right. Mrs. Wren and Qiuyue were indeed very unhappy that Qiuyue Dafeng and her husband could leave the Zhou residence and go to the Dai residence to follow young Master Dai, who had a bright future. Especially when Qiuyue had fallen out of favor. Initially, this matter did not have much to do with Mrs. Wren. She did not have any grudges with Qiuyue Dafeng. If they left, so be it. She would have less trouble. However, the bad thing was that Bian Han's words before he left completely ignited Zhou Dafeng's anger. Qiuyue's good, simple, and kind character instantly collapsed, and she even pushed Zhou Dafeng into an extremely embarrassing situation. After all, Bian Han had said those words in front of Dai Wanhua. Now that young Master Dai knew that his concubine was actually such a vicious person, not only did he seem like a joke, but his taste was bad, so muddle-headed that he was fooled by a woman. Hence, Qiuyue had fallen out of favor. Not only her, even Mrs. Ren was affected. In the past, Zhu Dafu could be tolerant of Mrs. Ren on account of his mother because Mrs. Ren usually spoke eloquently and did not make any big mistakes. However, this did not mean that Mrs. Ren could lie to him in front of everyone. Back then, she was the one who said that the couple was selling themselves. She said that Qiuyue was kind and compassionate to accept them. Bullshit. What did she take him for? A servant actually fooled the head of the family. Not selling her was already the last act of filial piety to the old madam. Zhu Dafu no longer cared about her confession and apology. He didn't even look at her. Mrs. Ren's heart was filled with hatred. She wished she could rush to the Dai residence and kill this couple. Hence, when Qiuyue was indignant and wanted to cause trouble for them, Mrs. Ren thought of the two portraits. The two of them also guessed who the person was and finally felt that there were only two possibilities. One was enemy, and the other was family member or friend. However, no matter what, if they cared about Qiyu Dafeng and her husband, they would definitely go to the Dai residence to ask for them. Young Master Dai had just bought Qiyu Dafeng and her husband back for less than 2 days. He would definitely not be willing to give them back. Wasn't there a conflict now? In any case, even if there was no big conflict, a small trouble was enough to make Dai Wenhuo's impression of Qiyu Dafeng and her husband worse. At the thought of Dai Wenhua, Mrs. Ren's hope was instantly reignited. She immediately said, "Miss, although the other party is your family, now that they have been bought by young Master Dai, they have already become servants of the Dai residence. Even if you want to bring them back to enjoy life, I'm afraid there's nothing you can do. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 826. I happen to know young Master Dai. Yes, that was it. Mrs. Ren felt a little better. She suddenly felt that this seemed to be more painful for Qiyu Dafeng. Just think about it. It was not easy for her to find her family, but she could not reunite with them. The good days were clearly close, but she could only be a servant and continue to serve others. So what if Qiyu Yundong opened a shop, had money, and had servants? Wasn't Qiyu Dafeng still a slave? This feeling of helplessness was the most interesting. Mrs. Ren could not help but smile as she thought about it. Aunt Ku also smiled slightly. Qiyu Yundong laughed twice and waved his hand. It's all right, it's all right. I happen to know young Master Dai. He's a loyal person and has a good temper. If he knows the ins and outs of the matter, he will definitely let my aunt and uncle come back with me. When the time comes, they can still live a good life after being expelled from the slave registry. No matter what, thank you for today. He knew young Master Dai. The corners of Mrs. Ren's lips froze halfway. She was in a daze. Qiyu Yundong was still laughing, mainly because she really could not hold it in anymore. This woman actually came to her door to seek abuse. She would feel sorry if she did not provoke the visitor with a few words. Cough cough, it was better to restrain herself. Qiyu Yundong reached out and patted Mrs. Ren's shoulder. She said gratefully, "It's all thanks to you. Otherwise, I don't know when we would have met again. I'm really too happy. I can't wait any longer. I'll go look for young Master Dai now and meet my aunt and uncle. Thank you." With that, she stood up and ran off without even mentioning the bounty. However, at this moment, how could Mrs. Ren think of the bounty? She stood up numbly. She seemed to have heard Aunt Ku say that she would walk her out. She nodded blankly and walked out. Qiyu Yundong only came down from the second floor after Mrs. Ren left Gus. He looked at Aunt Ku. She's gone. She's gone. Aunt Ku looked at her speechlessly. In order to shirk that bounty, you've put on a good show. You can't say that. What do you mean by shirking? My aunt and uncle have already returned home, so the news she provided that they are in the Dai residence is fake. She lied to me and I'm already being polite by not kicking her out. She still wanted a bounty? Dream on. Qiyu Yundong returned to the counter and continued talking to Zheng Gang. Aunt Ku pointed at her forehead. Anyway, you're right. There's nothing else for me to do here. I'll go back first. Don't go back yet. Let's go back to the small courtyard for dinner later. Next time. Aunt Ku waved her hand and left. Now that the Qiuyue family was reunited, she did not want to join in the fun. It was better to go home. Seeing that she insisted, Yundong did not ask her to stay. He lowered his head and continued to look at the account book. Zheng was right. The business in this shop was really good. In just half a day, there were already a lot of customers. She saw that Su Changshun didn't rest at all. He was so busy. It seemed like she wouldn't let him down if she didn't give him a raise. Yundong closed the ledger. Seeing that it was rare for him to rest, he waved him over and asked, "I heard that you moved. Where did you move to?" Su Changshun wiped his sweat with a towel and replied, "It's just a little over Qingtao Street. Just a walk of almost an hour." Qingtao Street, Why does it sound so familiar? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 827, It's Hers. Yundong thought about it. Wasn't it the place where Xiao Yuan's family used to live? That position, Yundong asked curiously. I remember that there's a group of local tyrants living there. They are quite fierce. Su Changshun nodded. Indeed. When my mother was looking for them, she was deceived by that person. The person didn't tell us that there were local tyrants who would wander outside. My mother saw that it was close to Su Qing's shop and the rent wasn't expensive, so she quickly rented it. In the end, on the day we moved, there was indeed a local tyrant who came looking for us. At this point, he laughed. But for some reason, although the local bully was very arrogant when he came to our door, when he saw us, he suddenly cowered. I didn't even have time to take a stick before they ran away in a hurry for no reason. It was as if they were afraid of me and never came again. Yundong blinked and quickly understood. When Gus opened, the local gangsters were waiting outside to cause trouble. Therefore, they must have seen Su Changshun as a worker and knew that he was from Gus. Gus had a powerful backer, so they were afraid of Su Changshun, so they naturally didn't dare to come and cause trouble. Zheng, who was at the side, also laughed out loud. This is not inexplicable. These local tyrants have come to find trouble with Gus in the past, but they were ruthlessly taught a lesson by the boss and Qingyuan. They are afraid. I reckon that they must know that you're a worker here. Su Changshun was surprised. Is that so? In that case, it's all thanks to boss and young master Shao. Regardless of the reason, since you're our shop's assistant, if you encounter trouble, you can tell the shopkeeper or me. If we have the ability to help, we won't ignore it. If he became her shop assistant, he would be hers. Su Changshun nodded repeatedly. Thank you, boss. But we're no longer in trouble. I haven't seen those local tyrants for a long time. Ever since we moved in, not only have they not come to my house, but they haven't even come near our house. Xiao Yuan even said that she has to thank me for this and gave us 2 pots of flowers. Oh, Xiao Yuan is our neighbor, a little girl. Yundong exclaimed, is it Xiao Yuan, who grows and sells flowers at home? Yes. Boss, do you know her? That's right. I didn't expect the 2 of you to become neighbors. You're quite fated. Su Changshun chuckled again. After they said a few words, another guest came. Su Changshun hurriedly went to entertain them. Yundong went to the storeroom to take a look and asked about the delivery. She thought that there was a huge demand now, and she needed more people to deliver the goods. In particular, her business was actually quite eye-catching. She had to hire some skilled people. Yundong finished reading the shop and account book. Seeing that it was getting late, she left Gus. When she thought of what Mrs. Wren had done previously, she could not help but feel happy. She even bought some food from the snack shop on the way home and went to the ready-to-wear shop to bring home the 2 sets of clothes that she had ordered for eldest Aunt Qiuyue and her husband. At this moment, Mrs. Wren, who was on the other side, seemed to have suffered a huge blow and returned to the Zhou mansion in a daze. Qiuyue was waiting anxiously in the snow-blowing garden. When she saw her, she rushed over and grabbed her shoulders. She asked anxiously, "How is it? Did you see them? Did you find out what relationship that person has with Qiuyue Dafeng? Do they have a feud? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 828, She's the one who should enjoy her life. Mrs. Wren looked at Qiuyue in front of her. The corners of her mouth opened and closed for a long time, but she could not say a word. Qiuyue was extremely anxious. Say something. What's their relationship? No, not an enemy, but a relative, and Mrs. Wren wanted to cry but had no tears. She slowly told Qiuyue what she had found out. Qiuyue was stunned. She fell back into her chair in disbelief. Her pupils constricted as she muttered to herself, "You're saying that that person is Yundong? She opened a shop and is rich now. She even knows the young master of the prefecture magistrate's family. She will bring Dafeng and his wife back and enjoy life." As she spoke, she suddenly laughed. "Mrs. Wren, are you joking with me?" She did not believe that Yundong was still alive. How could Dafeng enjoy life? Why? Why could she only be someone's concubine and be tortured by the main wife every day? Now, she was even despised by the old master. And Dafeng, Yundong, and the others had to live better and better. There was no such logic. She was the one who was supposed to enjoy life. Qiuyue suddenly stood up. "I don't believe it. I want to take a look. I have to see it with my own eyes." As she spoke, she rushed out. Mrs. Wren's expression changed and she hurriedly hugged her. "Aunt, calm down. I'm not calm. I just can't let them have a good life." Her eyes were red with hatred. She was indignant about Dafeng, but she really hated Yundong. If she hadn't caused Master Qian's death back then, Master Qian's subordinates wouldn't have blamed her. They had chased after her and wanted to take her back to report. She wouldn't have been separated from Fu Ming and her daughter wouldn't have died tragically. If not for Yundong, their family would still be together. It was all because of her. Because she hated Yundong but had nowhere to vent her anger, when she saw Dafeng and her husband who were close to Yundong, she brought them back to the Zhou family to torture and humiliate them. She wanted them to live a life worse than death to atone for Yundong's sins. The more Qiuyue thought about it, the more she hated it. Mrs. Wren could barely hold her. Seeing that there were people poking their heads over, she panicked and pinched Qiuyue hard, finally waking her up from the pain. Mrs. Wren said anxiously in a low voice, "Aunt, calm down. There are people staring at us outside now. Do you want to be sold by Master?" Qiuyue shuddered. Of course not. She couldn't cause any more trouble now. Otherwise, Dafu would lose his last bit of patience. But Mrs. Wren pulled her back to her seat and said softly, "I know Auntie is indignant, but it's already so late. Even if you go to look for her, you won't be able to see her. Moreover, there are people watching outside. Don't worry, I'll arrange it. We'll find a way to sneak out tomorrow." Qiuyue nodded in a daze. "All right, I'll listen to you." Mrs. Wren sighed. Seeing that the people outside had left, she sat down. This snow-blowing garden was no longer the original snow-blowing garden. Ever since Master found out about Concubine's true colors, he was worried about her. Coupled with Madame adding fuel to the fire, almost all the servants in the snow-blowing garden had been changed. A few of them were planted by Madame. This made Mrs. Wren's hands and feet tied. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 829, Find Her. To be honest, Mrs. Wren blamed Qiuyue in her heart. In order to vent the anger in her heart, she actually allowed her sister and brother-in-law to be beaten and scolded at will. In the end, after the matter was exposed, she was also blamed by the old master and her status in the residence plummeted. However, she had no choice now. Qiuyue was not very knowledgeable. Other than being unclear about Dafeng, she listened to her. Moreover, although old master hated Qiuyue, he still let her stay in the snow-blowing garden safely. This meant that old master still cared about their affection. It was not impossible for her to make a comeback. Mrs. Wren still wanted to use her to continue acting like a tyrant in this residence. After comforting Qiuyue, Mrs. Wren went back to work. The next day, she asked one of her trusted maids to change her clothes with Qiuyue and pretended to be uncomfortable in the room. Anyway, Qiuyue pretended to be sick for 2 days in order to regain Zhou Dafus' attention. The servants who were watching over them were used to it and would deliberately mock her and pretend not to know, let alone invite a doctor. Then, Mrs. Wren took Qiuyue out of the back door with the excuse that she was going to get some medicine for Concubine Qiuyue. Gus was a little far away. By the time Qiuyue arrived outside Gus, it was already noon. There were many people on this street and there were many guests in Gus. Qiuyue stood far away and could not see the people inside clearly. She frowned and asked Mrs. Wren, "Are you sure this is Yundong's shop? How can she open such a big shop and have such a good business?" Mrs. Wren was stunned for a moment. Actually, she was not very sure. But yesterday, Yundong indeed acted like she was the master of the house. Even the shopkeeper in the shop did not say anything when he saw her bringing people to the backyard. Wait, perhaps Yundong had something to do with the shopkeeper? Seeing how innocent Yundong was, and how she told her everything she asked, it did not seem like he could open a shop. At the thought of this, Mrs. Wren felt a little more confident. "Let's go closer and take a look." Qiuyue stuck her head out for a long time. In the end, she only saw the shop assistant coming back and forth. She felt very anxious. You should have asked around yesterday to find out where her family lives. Mrs. Wren resisted the urge to roll her eyes. What excuse did she use to inquire about other people's residences? She was also annoyed, but she still brought Qiuyue forward. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the shop, someone suddenly walked out of Gus. It was a woman. Qiuyue's eyes widened. "That's Yundong." Mrs. Wren saw it too. She pursed her lips and nodded. Qiuyue clenched her fists. She was really here. Was she really the owner of this shop? The hatred in her eyes was about to spread. Her emotions shot towards Yundong at the door, making her look over as if she had sensed something. Mrs. Wren's expression changed drastically. She turned around abruptly and stood in front of Qiuyue, blocking their vision. Yundong only took a glance before quickly retracting her gaze. She just smiled and asked Tong Shuidao, who was standing beside him, "Where are they standing?" "That's right. I thought I hid it very well." Tong Shuidao was very speechless. Didn't they know that her whereabouts were very eye-catching? As she spoke, a carriage slowly drove over from the street. When it reached the entrance of Gus, it slowly stopped. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 830, She's going to tear them up. Yundong glanced in Qiuyue's direction again before walking towards the carriage. The carriage door opened and Yunshu and Yuanzhi jumped out. Then, they turned around and let Dafeng, who was behind them, get out. Yundong smiled. "Aunt, you're here?" "That's right." Dafeng had been recuperating well for the past 2 days and was much more energetic. "The 2 children said that I couldn't stay at home all day and insisted on dragging me out for a walk. Coincidentally, they wanted to come to the shop to take a look, so I came with them." "You should come out for a walk. Didn't Dr. Xiong say that walking is good for your health?" Bian couldn't come out because of his legs, and he didn't want to trouble others, so he continued carving wood at home with a knife. Shao Qingyuan said that he would get someone to make a wooden wheelchair for him. In any case, it would take a long time for him to recover after he treated his legs. It would be more convenient to sit in a wooden wheelchair. However, it was not done yet. He had to wait a few more days. "Sister, is this our shop?" Yunshu walked inside excitedly. He had been in the prefectural city for a few days, but he had never come to the shop because of various things. Now, he finally saw it. Yuanzhi was still standing on the spot, holding Dafeng's hand. Ever since he reunited with his parents, he had become different. With someone to rely on, he felt much more at ease. The carriage behind the 2 of them was pulled away by Lu Sheng, who had brought them over. The area at the entrance instantly became much empty. Hence, When Mrs. Ren, who was not far away, stepped back and no longer blocked Qiuyue, she immediately saw Qiuyue and her son holding each other's hands. How could this be? Qiuyue widened her eyes in disbelief. Yundong had actually asked Qiuyue to come over from young Master Dai's side. Not only that, but Qiuyue had also put on new clothes. She was radiant and reunited with her son. It was as if all the suffering before was an illusion. Her good days had really come. She couldn't stand it. She couldn't stand it. Qiuyue's eyes turned red as she walked towards Gus. Mrs. Ren cursed in her heart and quickly hugged her. Aunt, calm down. How can I calm down? Yundong clearly deserves to die, but she actually opened such a big shop now. Qiuyue should have been stepped on by others and served others as a slave for the rest of her life, but now, she's actually wearing gorgeous clothes and reunited with her son. Someone even drove a carriage for her. Why? Even she didn't have any of these. What right did these two bitches have to enjoy it? She couldn't stand it. Qiuyue exerted all her strength to break free from Mrs. Ren's grip. The passers-by looked at them and pointed at them with strange expressions. Mrs. Ren was anxious, afraid that the commotion here would attract the attention of Gus people. But this time, even if she pinched Qiuyue hard, it would be useless. There was only one thought in Qiuyue's mind. She would go up and tear them apart. Mrs. Ren was secretly annoyed. I know you're unwilling, but what can you do even if you're unwilling? Could it be that you can kill them? You can't do anything. Once you rush in front of them, you might be grabbed by the shop assistants and shopkeepers and sent to the government office. Do you want Master to give up on you completely? Qiuyue was stunned, and the commotion quietened down. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 831, Resurrection. Mrs. Ren heaved a sigh of relief and continued, and don't forget that Yundong knows young Master Dai from the prefecture magistrate's office. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to bring Qiuyue and his wife home in just half a day. Later, she will complain to young Master Dai. If young Master Dai wants to pursue the matter, old Master will be the first to not let you off. Qiuyue listened and finally calmed down completely. Her flushed face gradually returned to normal. Mrs. Ren continued, I didn't bring you here today to agitate you to risk your life. I wanted you to see with your own eyes that their lives are good now. You can't touch them easily. Qiuyue suddenly turned around and glared at her. She sneered. Are you trying to tell me that I'm just a concubine who has fallen out of favor? The tables have turned. Do I have to kowtow and apologize to them when they see us? No, I want you to know that you can only deal with them if you're strong and stand higher than them. Qiuyue was stunned for a moment. After a while, she snorted. You make it sound so easy. How can I stand higher than them? I'm just an unloved concubine now. I don't have money or anyone in my hands. I don't even know young Master Dai. Mrs. Ren wanted to roll her eyes. This person was really insensible. That's why you have to fight for it. You have to obtain old Master's love again and become the mistress of the Zhou mansion. Mrs. Ren's eyes were shining. You have to do everything you can to squeeze Madam out. When you can make a decision in the manner, you will be able to know the madams of the real rich families in the prefecture city. So what if you don't know young Master Dai? Can't you know Miss Dai and Madam Dai? As long as you build a good relationship with them, what else do you have to worry about? The picture that Mrs. Ren had drawn for her was so beautiful that she began to tremble with excitement. Yes, so what if Yundong knew young Master Dai? When she got to know Madam Dai, she would tell Madam Dai that Yundong was shamelessly hooking up with other men and wanted to seduce young Master Dai to marry into the Dai family. At that time, she would not even need to do anything and Yundong would be directly dealt with by Madam Dai. Perhaps in order to prevent future troubles, not only Yundong, but the entire Qiuyue family, including Qiuyue, would be thrown into jail and finished together. Qiuyue laughed. She was so excited that her eyes were red and her fingers were cracking. Mrs. Ren heaved a sigh of relief. Qiuyue was a country bumpkin who didn't know anything. In addition, she was blinded by hatred, so she fell for her tricks. She knew very well that even if Qiuyue got rid of Mrs. Zhou, she might not be able to become the first wife. Even if she became the first wife, she would definitely not be able to get to know someone like Madame Dai. It was impossible for Madame Dai to like her at all. But so what? As long as she listened to Mrs. Ren and pulled Mrs. Zhou down, everything else was not important. Qiuyue tried her best to retract her gaze from Gus and look elsewhere. Only then could she listen to her mother calmly. "All right, I'll listen to you. What should I do next?" "Get pregnant with a son." Qiuyue frowned. "But now, Old Master has already, so what?" "Old Master still has some feelings for you. As long as it's a little, you can revive. At that time, you can seize the opportunity. When you have a son, you will have a bargaining chip to fight with Mrs. Zhou." Although Qiuyue frowned, she still nodded. Mrs. Ren was satisfied. "Let's go. I'll tell you what to do when we get back. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 832, The Jumpy Yunshu and Yuanzhi. Qiuyue looked at Gus unwillingly and left angrily. Neither of them knew that not far behind them squatted a woman who had her ears pricked up and was pretending to wipe her shoes. Seeing that they were about to leave, that person stood up and walked towards Gus with her head lowered. Yundong was introducing the items in the shop to Dafeng. When he turned around and saw Tong Shuidao, he nodded slightly and said, "Aunt, go upstairs and rest for a while." Then, she called out to Yunshu and Yuanzhi, who had already gone to the backyard. "The two of you, help Aunt to the second floor and enjoy the scenery." Eldest Aunt Qiuyue looked at her helplessly. "What do you mean by helping me? It's not like I can't walk. Why do I need to help?" However, Yunshu and Yuanzhi had already run over quickly and grabbed her hands from both sides. "Aunt, this way. Be careful. Mother, let's go to the second floor. I heard from Keek that the second floor of this shop is very beautiful. The seats upstairs are soft and comfortable." Dafeng looked at the two of them lovingly and let them hold her hand as they walked upstairs. Yundong waved his hand. "I'll pour tea for you." As she spoke, she really walked towards the backyard. Tong Shuidao hurriedly followed. The two of them asked as they walked, "Have those two left?" Tong Shuidao nodded. "They went home." "What did they say?" "I didn't dare to get too close, but when Qiuyue lost control, I vaguely heard something about unwillingness. Mrs. Ren persuaded her to go back and get pregnant first before becoming the first wife. I couldn't hear what happened after that, but I think she mentioned young Master Dai and Madame Dai." Yundong walked to the kitchen and poured fruit tea for them while smiling. "Looks like the backyard of the Zhou mansion is about to welcome a storm of blood. Miss, what should we do?" Yundong placed the cups on the tray. Tong Shuidao hurriedly picked up the teapot and the two of them walked to the second floor of the shop. "What should we do?" "Oh, Dao, Concubine Qiuyue has been with Zhou Dafu for more than a year, right? I heard that Zhou Dafu dotes on her, but she is not pregnant yet." Tong Shuidao was stunned. "Miss, you mean, not necessarily. It's only a year." Yundong shook her head. "It's normal for some people to take 3 to 4 years to get pregnant, but, until now, Zhou Dafu only had one son. He didn't even have a daughter. Qiuyue wasn't his only concubine." She smiled and said nothing more. They were already standing on the second floor. Tong Shuidao didn't understand. "But what? Why did Miss say half of it?" Yundong walked into the attic on the second floor and saw the two children lying on the sofa. "It's really comfortable. I can even sleep on it. Look at this pillow. It's soft and can even lean against the wall. There's even a storybook here. Wow, I didn't even see one in the county city. There are many bookstores in the prefectural city. There will definitely be many books. Then let's go to the bookstore in the prefecture next time." Sure. When the time comes, we can come here and sit in such a comfortable chair while drinking milk tea and reading scripts. Ah, this is simply a day for immortals." Yundong, who was standing at the door, was speechless. Why were these two so jumpy when she was not around? Ahem. She coughed heavily. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 833, Misread. The two children heard the commotion and stood up in a second. Yundong walked in and looked at the two of them with a faint smile. The two little guys chuckled at her and sat back down. They even jumped on the cushions. Eldest sister, it's too comfortable here, so the small people in our hearts came out and spoke by themselves. We weren't the ones who said those words just now. Yes, it's not us. Bian Yuanzhi nodded vigorously with a serious expression. The corners of Yundong's mouth twitched. Just continue to make up stories. Their imagination was quite wild. Even the small people in their hearts had come out. Would another little person appear later? Would the two little people fight in their minds? All right, I won't stop you in your own home. If you want to jump, then jump. However, you can't do this when you're outside. Yunshu immediately ran over. No, we're very obedient outside. Everyone says that I'm cute and wants to snatch me home to be their son. Yuanzhi covered his mouth and laughed at the side. There were really people who saw that Yunshu was smart, good at studying, obedient, and good-looking. They said that they wanted to bring him home. In the end, Yunshu was so frightened that he thought it was true. He lectured that person for the entire afternoon, saying that it was wrong to abduct children. Other people's children would be ingrates if they were brought back. If he left his parents, sister, he would not be able to eat or sleep. Then, he would die of depression and haggardness. Then, he would not let them off even if he turned into a ghost. The corners of the person's eyes twitched and he had a splitting headache. He repeatedly promised and raised his hands to swear that he would not snatch him back before Yunshu was willing to let it go. From then on, he was given a nickname in school, the relentless boy after death. Yunshu did not say these things. He felt that this nickname was not good and would damage his image. Yundong knocked Yunshu's head and placed the tray on the table. She then asked, "Where's eldest aunt?" She just saw a vendor walking past below by the window. Eldest aunt went down. As soon as she finished speaking, Dafeng returned. Yundong asked curiously, "Aunt, what did you see?" "I'm fine. I saw wrongly." She had been looking down from upstairs and almost thought that the person carrying the burden was her fourth brother. However, when she walked down, she realized that it was not the case. Now that she had reunited with her eldest brother, the whereabouts of the others were clear. Only her fourth brother was still unknown. Yundong saw that she was unwilling to say more, so she did not ask further and handed her a cup of fruit tea. The fruit tea was sour and sweet. Eldest Aunt Qiuyue took a sip and could not help but widen her eyes. "It's delicious." The other two children had already gulped down half a cup. "Eldest sister, can we make this at home in the future?" "Okay." Eldest Aunt Qiuyue looked at the children and her depressed mood improved again. She finally had a chance to size up the attic. "This place is really comfortable. Yundong, how did you think of this?" "I just thought I liked it, so I got someone to make it. However, this place is still a little small and simple. The milk tea shop is really beautiful." She happened to go to the milk tea shop yesterday and did not tell Madame Dai and Nai Shuang. She wanted to experience it as a guest and see if there was anything that needed to be improved. After checking it, it was quite good. At least in terms of eating and drinking, it tasted very good. When Yunshu heard her mention the milk tea shop, she quickly said, "Sister, can we go now? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 834, To the Milk Tea Shop. "Now," Yunshu said pitifully, "we only have a few days of vacation left. I've agreed with Yuanzhi that I have to go to Aunt Ku's house and let him see the courtyard I lived in back then. I also have to go to Tianhai Academy to experience the strong academic atmosphere. I also have to go to the bookstore and find a storybook. No, find scriptures to read." There were so many places he had to go. His schedule was too full and he was so busy. It was really not easy. Yundong felt sympathy for him. She thought that since there was nothing important in the afternoon, she might as well go. All right, I'll take you there. At this time, there shouldn't be many people. It wouldn't be a problem to bring the 2 children over. The milk tea shop allowed children, but it was only limited to people under the age of 10. Moreover, most of the people who brought children went to private rooms. The 2 children immediately cheered and raised their heads to finish the fruit tea in their cups. Dafeng shook her head helplessly. She drank very slowly. The doctor said that her stomach was not good now, so she had to drink and eat slowly to avoid getting injured too quickly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yunshu and Bian Yuanzhi went to the cabinet on the wall to look for storybooks. I've never seen this before. Let's bring it back. Last time, Junjie said that he couldn't find this book in the bookstore in the county city for a long time. I'll bring it back for him. He'll definitely be happy. When Dafeng heard this after drinking, she immediately frowned slightly and asked Yundong softly, "Is that okay? Can they read storybooks? Will it affect their studies? What if the teacher finds out and is disappointed in them and punishes them?" Yundong comforted her. "It's all right. Mr. Qin doesn't object to students reading miscellaneous books. As long as they have a sense of propriety and it doesn't affect their studies, it doesn't matter if they read some storybooks. If it affects normal classes, he will confiscate the students' miscellaneous books and carry out, yes, special education." Dafeng did not understand special education, but from what Yundong said, it was allowed by the teacher. Moreover, the teacher was the top scholar, so there was definitely no problem. Dafeng was relieved. The 2 children had also picked 3 books and put them away. They smiled at Yundong. Yundong crossed his arms and looked at them with a half-smile. "Did a small person crawl out of your heart just now and control your hands to get the storybook? Sister, you're really good at predicting. Damn you, glib-tongued." The group went downstairs and informed Zhang Gang. Then, they rode the carriage to the milk tea shop. Tong Shuidao did not go. She still had something on. The name of the milk tea shop was Tea Pavilion. Nai Shuang and Madame Dai insisted on her naming it. Yundong thought that she was bad at giving names and gave up on herself. She thought that if they were not satisfied, they could think of something else. Unexpectedly, the 2 of them agreed to it. It was simple and clear, allowing people to know what this shop was for at a glance. Wasn't milk tea new tea? No one had seen it before. Yundong was speechless. Heir. Was it that rash? Yes, it was a very rash name, so much so that Yundong did not often mention the name of the milk tea shop. Anyway, when she saw this name, she had no idea. The carriage stopped at the entrance of Tea Pavilion not long after. Before the 2 children got out of the carriage, they had already lifted the curtains and saw the 2-story tall shop in front of them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 835, Tea Pavilion. Tea Pavilion? They got out of the car. Yunshu and Bian Yuanzhi looked up at the name on the plaque, deep in thought. Yundong coughed lightly and was about to say, "Hurry up and go in. There's nothing interesting about this name." Unexpectedly, Yunshu suddenly said, "Cook new tea from the river and buy all the green mountains as a drawing screen." When I see these 2 words, I can feel that this tea shop gives people a leisurely feeling. Heir. Are you sure? It was rare for Yundong to have a knot in her head. She looked at the plaque above her head with a gratified expression. Relief. Yundong shivered and quickly said, "All right, don't stand at the door. Let's go in first." Only then did they walk in. Tea Pavilion's business was really booming. Even if it was not time for afternoon tea, more than half of the people in the hall were already seated. Most of these people were dressed gorgeously and spoke very softly. Even when they smiled, they covered their mouths with a handkerchief. Therefore, when she entered, she had a quiet and elegant feeling. However, Dafeng was so shocked that she did not dare to walk forward. So this was what the so-called milk tea shop was like. She thought that it was similar to Gus. However, when she came in, she realized that it was completely different. She stood here as if she had walked into another world. She looked especially out of place. Yundong took a few steps and realized that her aunt was not following her. She quickly turned around and saw that she was at a loss. She was shocked and immediately took a few steps back to support her arm. Dafeng grabbed her tightly. Yundong, I don't think I should go in. Yundong thought for a moment. It's fine. Well, go to the private room. It's not in the hall. Eldest aunt, don't be afraid. I'm here. Yuanzhi is also here. This is my shop. You're an esteemed guest here. Come, hold your head high. I'll bring you in. She did not know if it was because of what Yundong had said, but with her and Yuanzhi around, eldest aunt Qiuyue felt a surge of vigor. Yes, what was there to be afraid of? This shop belonged to Yundong. If she didn't even dare to enter her niece's shop, not only would she embarrass herself, but she would also embarrass Yuanzhi. Yundong looked at her slightly raised face and smiled. She still wanted her eldest aunt to become the hearty eldest aunt of the past. How cute, right? Let's go. I can do it. Dafeng also smiled. She was still very nervous, her palms were sweaty, and her back seemed to be sweating. She could even feel the guests in the hall looking over. But it didn't matter. She had Yundong by her side. She wasn't afraid. Yundong held her arm and walked steadily to the counter with a smile on her face. Yunshu and Yuanzhi were already standing in front of the counter. When they saw the menu beside them, they couldn't help but lean over to take a look. There was a lady behind the counter. She smiled and asked them, "Did the two young masters come here on their own?" Yunshu looked up and met the eldest sister with a sweet smile. Her eyes were also bright. "No, I came with my sister and aunt." Then she pointed in Yundong's direction. The girl was still smiling as she looked in that direction. The smile remained on her face, but her eyelids twitched violently. Yundong lowered her head and whispered to eldest aunt Qiuyue. She did not see her. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 836, Yundong is bankrupt. When she reached the counter, she asked the two children, "Have you thought about what to eat and drink?" "I want to drink milk tea and eat those fries," Yunshu said quickly. "I want double skim milk." Yuanzhi had a special fondness for this. "And chicken nuggets." Yundong looked at eldest aunt Qiuyue again. The latter did not know how to read and did not know what delicious food there was. She was a little nervous. But with Yundong by her side, she quickly calmed down. "Just order. I don't know what to drink." Yundong thought for a moment and said to the girl, "Then give me another pot of osmanthus tea and a plate of osmanthus cake." She said to eldest aunt Qiuyue, "Osmanthus tea is good for the stomach. During this season, the osmanthus flowers this year have been plucked and dried. The osmanthus flowers in new Tea Pavilion are all fresh." "All right, I'll try." Yundong said to the girl, "That's all for now. We'll order whatever we want later. We want a private room. The type that children like." When it was renovated, there were many types of private rooms. Yundong did not know which one was still empty, so she could only ask the waiter. The girl's hand under the counter gently tugged, then nodded with a smile. "All right, I'll get someone to bring the guest to the private room." The girl first noted down what they had ordered. Then, she found another young round-faced girl and led them inside. Before Yundong left, she asked, "By the way, where's Suqing? I saw her yesterday when I came." Suqing happened to be resting today, so she didn't come. Yundong nodded and left. As soon as she left, she disappeared behind the door. The girl at the counter suddenly crumpled the paper in her hand into a ball and threw it on the ground. What kind of person is she? She's really shameless. She's so annoying. Another slightly older girl happened to walk behind the counter. When she saw this, she could not help but ask, "What happened? Who made you angry and threw the order away?" As he spoke, he squatted down and picked up the paper. He placed it on the table and smoothed it out. However, The ink on it had completely smudged the words. It was impossible to see what the customer had ordered. The girl could not help but frown. Xiaoyi, what does it say? What do you care what she wrote? The lady frowned even more badly. What's going on? This customer offended you and made you have such an attitude. This won't do. The boss has said that anyone who comes is a guest and has to be treated well. Aya, Sister Lan, you don't understand at all? Xiaoyi snorted. What kind of guests are they? What's going on? Xiaoyi glared at her fiercely. You don't know, but that woman came yesterday too. Before noon, she came to the shop and ordered 2 cups of milk tea. One was hers, and the other was her maid's. Then, the 2 of them sat in that corner of the hall for the entire afternoon. They didn't move at all. The more Xiaoyi spoke, the angrier she became. Look at those young ladies and madams who came to our place. Which one of them would sit at the same table as a maidservant and drink tea? Only those ignorant and dilapidated families are so impolite. Wei Lan felt that this was wrong. Xiaoyi, there's no rule in our shop that you can't sit with a maidservant. What do you know? When Xiaoyi saw her retort, her tone could not help but become heavier. There's something even worse. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 837, 3 Bosses. A customer looked over and Wei Lan quickly pulled her back. Be quiet. Xiaoyi shrunk her head and continued, it's fine if they sit in this shop for half a day, but the problem is that they keep stealing glances at others. Learning how to eat and drink elegantly from those madams and young ladies, I feel that it's shabby. Sister Lan, it's not that I want to criticize them, but if the other madams and young ladies find out, they will lose their temper and find trouble with our shop. If Yundong were here to hear this, she would definitely shout that she was wronged. She just wanted to know how satisfied the customers were with the shop and see if they liked the food. Moreover, she had really only taken a few glances. Who knew that this Xiaoyi would actually discover it? Wei Lan felt that Xiaoyi's words were all guesses. It can't be. Did you misunderstand? I saw it with my own eyes. How could I have misunderstood? Just watch. They came yesterday and tasted the sweetness. Today, they came again. They even brought their families. If they come at this hour, they will definitely sit for the entire afternoon. Oh right, there's another thing. Su Qing was the one who entertained them yesterday. You didn't see her. She was so attentive. When she saw that the woman had finished her milk tea, she immediately went over to refill it. I think she likes to serve such poor guests. The more she spoke, the more she went overboard. Wei Lan couldn't stand it anymore, so she interrupted her and said, you'd better tell me what's written on this list first. I'll get someone to do it so that the guests won't wait. I've said so much, but you didn't listen at all. Xiaoyi stomped her feet. Wei Lan handed the paper forward. Xiaoyi was furious. Milk tea, double skim milk, fries, chicken nuggets, and a pot of Osmanthus tea and a plate of Osmanthus cake. They're all gone. Wei Lan nodded and wrote again on the paper. Seeing this, Xiaoyi rolled her eyes. I told you for nothing. It's really boring. Her tone was really not good. Wei Lan pursed her lips, feeling a little dissatisfied. She was Naishuang's woman, and Xiaoyi was Madame Deus' woman. In the beginning, everyone was the same and got along well with each other. After all, the 2 bosses had repeatedly instructed them to get along harmoniously and not to fight among themselves. Therefore, the girls in the shop were quite friendly. After all, they were all carefully selected. At least, they did their best to treat the customers. But as time passed, conflicts arose. Among the 3 owners, Yundong had never appeared, even though Naishuang and Madame Dai seemed to think highly of her. However, everyone still knew that this boss did not have much power. In addition, they did not know her, so they did not know her personality. Naturally, in everyone's hearts, she was not as prestigious as the other 2 bosses. Moreover, Naishuang and Madame Dai had brought many people with them. Boss Qiuyue only had Su Qing. Su Qing's family background was not particularly good. Therefore, gradually, the shop was divided into several factions. In the beginning, Wei Lan thought that Su Qing was alone and would probably be ostracized by everyone. She did not expect her to be so popular, especially with the few old women in the kitchen. Therefore, even though she seemed to be alone, the people in the shop did not become enemies with her. Everyone seemed to be harmonious with her. During this period of time, everyone's mental state had more or less changed. As for Xiao Yi, she had the biggest change in temperament here. Because she felt that she belonged to Madame Dai and was superior to others. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 838, she said thank you. Wei Lan did not like her very much, but she did not dare to offend her. The balance between the three bosses was very important. If she broke this balance, she would probably not be able to stay here anymore. Sighing inwardly, Wei Lan brought the menu to the kitchen and got someone to quickly prepare the food. When it was done, she personally carried the tray over. The round-faced girl arranged for Yundong and the rest to be in a private room with a carpet and toys. Yundong regretted it the moment she entered. This place was suitable for Keek to come over at her age. The two kids were a little old after going to school. Just as she thought this, she saw Yunshu and Yuanzhi go in happily. Then, they started playing with the puzzles. I've solved the puzzles several times. Then why are you still playing? I want to challenge speed. I want to see how quickly I can solve it. Last time, I saw that the headmaster did it in less than 5 minutes. I want to be faster than him so that I can go to the headmaster and show off. Yundong, your aspirations are really too great. This private room is not bad. After the round-faced girl left, eldest Aunt Qiuyue felt much more at ease. She looked around the private room and seemed to like it very much. Especially when she saw the two children playing on the carpet, she was even more satisfied. Yundong and her sat on the sofa at the side. This is just one type of the sofas. When this place closes, I'll bring eldest aunt to check all the private rooms. Why would I need it? Of course. After all, I haven't seen all of them yet. Eldest Aunt Qiuyue smiled and pointed at her. So you want to go yourself? The two children who were playing over there also heard it. We want to go too. You're going back to the county in a few days. There's no chance. Yunshu quickly stood up. Then there's no time like the present. Let's do it today. Let's wait here until closing time and then look at every room. You're really impulsive. Let me think, it was mainly because Su Qing happened to be resting today and the others in the shop did not know her. They had seen the old women in the kitchen. After all, she was the one who taught them how to make milk tea. It just wasn't convenient. Moreover, the shop closed relatively late. They didn't tell their family when they came out today, and their family might be worried. Just as she was thinking about it, there was a knock on the door of the private room. Yundong looked up. Come in. Wei Lan opened the door and walked in with a tray. She smiled and placed the things on the table. Then, she said, this is the milk tea, osmanthus tea, and osmanthus cake that the customer ordered. As for double skin milk and the other two snacks, please wait a moment. Thank you. Yundong smiled and nodded at her. Wei Lan left the room and paused for a moment before turning to look at the closed door. There were really too few madams and young ladies who said thank you. They were used to being served by the people around them and had already taken it for granted. This girl. Her smile was beautiful, and her voice was pleasant. Especially when she thanked her, it actually made her feel like her work had been acknowledged. Wei Lan felt that this girl was not like what Xiao Yi had said at all. She wasn't from a dilapidated family who did not know etiquette and only knew how to imitate others. She even had an aura that was stronger than Wei Lan's young lady. Wei Lan walked back to the counter, and Xiao Yi came over again. How is it? I told you, they are in the private room. Are they looking around like they've never seen the world? Chapter 839, Demanding a Beating. Wei Lan was a little annoyed. Was there no end to this? She was just a guest. Why did she have such a big opinion? She had never had an unhappy conflict with her, right? I'm asking you a question. Answer me. Xiao Yi tugged at her. Wei Lan secretly took a deep breath and quietly pulled back her sleeve. She said calmly, "No, be it that girl or the others, they're all quite easy to get along with. They are very polite. I don't believe you. It must be because they are in the room. You couldn't tell. If you don't believe me, why are you asking me?" Wei Lan was not willing to continue chatting with her. She carried the tray and turned around. "I'm going to get busy. There are guests outside again. Hurry up and entertain them." Xiaoyi turned her head and saw a familiar young lady walking in. A smile suddenly appeared on her face and she hurriedly went up to her. Wei Lan shook her head and went to the kitchen to bring the other snacks from Yundong's room. When she walked into the room, she saw her picking up the teapot and pouring tea for Qiuyue Dafeng. Wei Lan took another look. She was indeed not as elegant, slow, and dignified as the young ladies of other rich families. She looked very casual. "Miss, here are your tea and snacks. Please enjoy." Qiuyue Yundong thanked her again. When she was arranging them, he asked casually, "What's your name?" "Miss, my name is Wei Lan." "Wei Lan." Qiuyue Yundong murmured softly and continued to ask, "How does it feel to be a shop assistant here?" Yesterday, she came over to check on the guests' reactions. Today, she wanted to understand the thoughts of the staff working here. Wei Lan stopped what she was doing and looked up with a smile. "Of course it's good. Our new Tea Pavilion is the only shop in the entire Xuanhe prefecture that only sells milk tea to female customers. I'm very happy to be able to work here. Others are envious of me for becoming a female employee of new Tea Pavilion." "Is that so?" Qiuyue Yundong smiled and did not ask further. She turned around and called out to the two people who were still working hard to solve the puzzles. "Everything is here. Hurry up and wash your hands. Otherwise, it will get cold later." Yunshu had just finished the last puzzle, but it had been a long time and he felt a little defeated. Bian Yuanzhi patted him on the shoulder. "It's okay. Let's work harder. You have to think like this. The teacher is so many years older than you. When you reach the age of the teacher, you will definitely be able to solve it faster than him." Yunshu was instantly comforted. His eyes lit up as he said, "That's right. The teacher is already so old. His hands are much older than mine." Then, he shook his chubby hand. He had been eating a little too much recently, and his hand was no longer flexible. The corners of Qiuyue Yundong's mouth twitched. "In your eyes, are all people over the age of 10 old? This brat really deserved a beating. He was not cute." She urged him, "Aren't you going?" "I'll go now." The two of them hurriedly stood up. Wei Lan quickly said, "I'll bring the two young masters over." Most of the guests in this house were guests who brought their children over. They were afraid that the children would overturn the basins when they ran, so the basins were not placed inside. Wei Lan opened the door and led Yunshu and Bian Yuanzhi out. There was a washroom in the courtyard. Yunshu walked on the steps and wanted to wash himself, but Wei Lan had already taken a wet handkerchief to wipe his hands. Yunshu was still a little embarrassed, so he stood there obediently. When he was done wiping his hands, he said, "Sister, when will new Tea Pavilion close?" Chapter 840, Brainwashed by Yunshu. Wei Lan was stunned for a moment. "Little master, why are you asking this?" She had already wiped Yunshu's hands. She got up and wrung the towel because she wiped Yuanzhi. "We want to take a look at the other rooms after closing when there are no customers." As soon as he finished speaking, Yuanzhi said, "Cousin said that she wanted to consider it, but she didn't agree." Yunshu snorted. "I will definitely convince her. My sister likes me very much. She won't have the heart to reject me." "Ha ha ha, you're praising yourself. Yunshu, you're getting more and more shameless. If you mock me again, I'll draw a turtle on your face later." Thick-skinned, "Hey." Yunshu pretended to cover his mouth. Bian Yuanzhi quickly dodged to the side and said to Wei Lan, "Sister, we'll go back to the room first." Then he ran. Yunshu hurriedly chased after him. The two of them quickly entered the private room. Wei Lan stood on the spot and watched as their little figures gradually disappear. The corners of her mouth pursed slightly. "Phut," a familiar sneer suddenly came from the side. Wei Lan turned around and saw Xiao Yi leaning against the pillar under the corridor. She had an expression that said, "Am I right?" She slowly walked in front of Wei Lan and pointed at the door of the room. "You didn't believe me when I told you, but did you hear him now? They're going to stay until closing time and then check all our private rooms." Wei Lan didn't say anything this time. Xiao Yi became even more smug. They treat this place as their own backyard. They can visit whenever they want. Who agreed? Why don't they take a look at themselves? Those esteemed guests wanted to visit, but our madam didn't agree. Just them. How prestigious. Wei Lan thought of Yundong's expression of gratitude and felt that she was not the kind of guest who would make unreasonable requests. Hence, he still defended her. Just now, it was just the thoughts of the two young masters. You heard it too. That girl didn't agree. But she said she'd think about it. She didn't say no. Perhaps, it's to appease the little masters. Xiao Yi snorted. You're really stubborn. All right, let's see if they'll stay until closing time. Let me tell you first, I won't be polite to such rude guests who make excessive requests. Our shop is backed by the wife of the prefecture magistrate. There's no need to give anyone face in the entire Xuanhe prefecture. After saying that, she turned around and left. Xiao Yi, you, Wei Lan chased after her for a few steps before stopping. She turned her head and looked in the direction of the room. After a while, she returned to the hall. Meanwhile, in the room, Yundong was brainwashing Yunshu. Sister, don't you often say that we have to catch them off guard? Think about it. If you suddenly say that you want to inspect the shop and check all the rooms today, everyone won't have time to prepare. What you see will be the true appearance of the rooms, right? I heard a story from our teacher. He said that an emperor from the previous dynasty wanted to experience the suffering of the common people, but every time, he would mobilize a large number of people and tell everyone in advance. Then, everyone would know where the emperor went, so everything was prepared in advance. When the emperor left the palace, he would see the common people singing and dancing. The common people would eat their fill and wear warm clothes with a satisfied smile on their faces. Guess what happened in the end? Yunshu deliberately kept her in suspense. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 841, Ask Eldest Aunt. Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Of course, she knew that this kind of story was too common. However, when she saw that her eldest aunt was listening with interest, she did not interrupt and even asked, "What happened in the end?" Yunshu picked up a fry with his chopsticks and ate it. He took a sip of milk tea and lowered his voice mysteriously. After that, the previous dynasty was destroyed. This causal relationship had changed too quickly. Eldest Aunt Qiuyue didn't understand. She looked shocked and asked, "Why?" Sigh, because what the emperor saw when he went to the common people was what others let him see. He didn't know what the common people's true lives were like. He felt that everyone was living well. There were no corrupt officials in the royal court, and the common people were well fed. Then, as the emperor, he didn't need to do much. He no longer worked hard to rule, no longer cared about the officials who were rich. He even increased the taxes and taxes. He wanted people to build a summer residence for him, wasting the people's money and forcing the common people to have no way out. Eldest Aunt Qiuyue was enlightened. She nodded and said, "I think your teacher's story is quite good. We commoners have a hard time." "Isn't that so?" Yunshu immediately nodded fiercely. Then, he was stunned. No, that was not what he wanted to say. He looked at Yundong and realized that there was no other change in her expression. He quickly changed the topic. "Eldest sister, look. We have to see the bigger picture from the small. No, the smaller picture from the big. Although new Tea Pavilion is small compared to the previous dynasty, the logic is the same, right? You suddenly did this when no one was on guard." Yundong saw that his mouth was about to dry up and handed him a milk teacup. "All right, I understand. I'll get Lu Sheng to go back and tell father that we won't be coming back for dinner tonight." Yunshu's eyes lit up. "Eldest sister, You're the best. Yundong tapped his head and said to eldest aunt Qiuyue, I'm going out for a while. It was not suitable for men to enter new Tea Pavilion, so Yundong asked Lu Sheng, who had driven over, to rest at the tea stall beside him. The business of this tea stall was very good now. There were especially many coachmen like Lu Sheng who sent Miss and Madam to new Tea Pavilion. Yundong returned after instructing Lu Sheng. However, when she passed by the counter, she felt an unfriendly gaze. She turned her head to look, and the other party immediately put on a smile. Yundong raised her eyebrows. This seemed to be the person who had ordered for them previously. She lowered her eyes and suddenly smiled. Yunshu, that brat, had a point. Xiao maintained her smile. After Yundong left, she snorted. She would wait for 2 hours to see if this stranger would leave. If the stranger did not leave, she would have to ask her to leave. Yundong returned to the room and saw Yunshu showing off to Bian Yuanzhi. I told you that my elder sister dotes on me the most. Look, I just told her a story and she agreed. It made the other stories I prepared useless. Yundong could not help but knock him on the head. On the other hand, eldest aunt Qiuyue could not help but ask, You've been here all afternoon. Will it delay your work? She knew that Yundong was very busy now. There were many things to do in the shop and workshop. I won't delay. I can take this opportunity to rest. In fact, when she went out just now, she was still wondering if she should take down the brush and paper from the carriage to take a look. However, she instantly dismissed this thought. I happen to have something to ask you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 842, Chasing Yundong Away. What is it? Eldest aunt Qiuyue asked. Eat first. We can talk slowly. Yundong brought her a piece of osmanthus cake. Eldest aunt Qiuyue had a small bite and chewed carefully. In the past, she had bought a few pieces of osmanthus cake in the county city, but they were not as delicious as the ones here. After taking another sip of osmanthus tea, she felt as if her entire life was satisfied. Eldest aunt, what are your plans for the future? Yundong asked softly when she saw that she had finished a whole piece. When eldest aunt Qiuyue saw that she was asking about this, she immediately smiled. Your uncle and I have already discussed this. Didn't Mrs. Wren say that your uncle's wooden carvings were selling quite well last time? I'll sell them. Although your uncle's legs are not good, his carving skills are getting better and better. Even if the little things aren't worth much, I can still earn a lot of money when there are more of them. Yundong nodded. Eldest uncle had a skill that was already much better than many people. For now, he would make small wooden carvings. When his legs were better in the future, he could also make big ones. Then have you thought of where to sell them? Eldest aunt Qiuyue shook her head. I want to bring some to the market tomorrow and set up a stall on the ground to see how business is. Yundong thought for a while. I know a market not far from Gus. It sells flowers, birds, calligraphy, paintings, and so on. The environment is not bad. Aunt, you can go there and take a look first. The small wooden carvings were also a work of art. There should be a market there. Eldest aunt Gus' eyes lit up. Really? At first, she thought of finding a random place at the entrance of the market. In the past, when she was in Yongning Prefecture, there was no market in the county city to sell flowers and birds. Perhaps she couldn't come into contact with it, so she didn't know. Yes, the flowers in my mother's courtyard were bought at that market. The mother and daughter who sell flowers should still be there. The little girl's name is Xiao. If eldest aunt encounters her, you can accompany each other. They are quite good people. Eldest aunt Qiuyue was even happier. She hadn't even gone to the market, but she already had a companion. If there was anything she didn't understand, she could ask them. In the end, she had never walked around the prefectural city here. She was more or less worried, afraid that she would not be able to speak to the people in the prefectural city. Yundong asked her about the price again. The price that eldest aunt Qiuyue and her husband set was really too low. This was the prefectural city, so they could still raise the price. Moreover, Although Bian Han's craftsmanship was not as good as a grandmaster's, he was serious and meticulous. Every small wooden carving was done diligently, and the quality was definitely not a problem. Eldest Aunt Qiuyue was actually not good at doing business, but she would ask. As Yundong chatted with her, she slowly felt that she had become much more straightforward. As expected, Eldest Aunt Qiuyue was still the same Eldest Aunt Qiuyue as before. Knock, knock. Just as the two of them were deep in conversation, there was a knock on the door. Yundong's voice stopped abruptly. He frowned slightly and looked in the direction of the private room's door. Yunshu had already rushed over to open the door. He was stunned when he saw Xiao Yi standing in front of him. "May I ask what's the matter?" Xiao Yi still had a smile on her face and her attitude was still polite. She stood at the door and looked at Yundong. "Miss, it's already 3 p.m. So what?" "All right, I understand." Yundong smiled and nodded gently. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 843, Fight. Xiao Yi saw that she was pretending to be stupid and did not know what was good for her, so she simply made it clear. "Miss, it's like this. Ever since our new Tea Pavilion opened for business, there have been many customers every day. Whether it's the hall or the room, it's filled with people. Especially after noon, some customers still have to wait for seats." Yundong frowned, but Xiao Yi continued to smile and said, "It's the most crowded time now, so there's no room. A madam had tea and snacks in this room last time and was very satisfied. Today, she came over and asked us for this room again." Yundong looked at her with a faint smile. How strange. There was actually someone who chased away guests. Yunshu scratched his head and looked up at Xiao Yi. "Didn't you tell that madam that there are already guests in this room?" Xiao Yi lowered her head to look at him, then continued to look at Yundong and said, "Miss, look, you've been here for nearly 4 hours." Yunshu was enlightened and could not help but widen his eyes. "So you want to chase us away?" He quickly turned around and walked to Yundong's side. "Eldest sister, she is a bad person." Xiao Yi was so angry that she almost fell backward. This stinky child. Yundong saw that she could not maintain the smile on her face and finally said, "But we haven't finished eating." She had been talking to Eldest Aunt Qiuyue just now and only eaten 2 pieces of Osmanthus cake on the table. Yunshu had finished his fries, but Yuanzhi's chicken nuggets were still there. He wanted to eat them later. Xiao Yi also saw the table in front of them and felt even more contempt in her heart. She did not expect them to eat so slowly just to stay here until closing time. She had really learned something. "You can take the food back." As soon as she said this, Wei Lan ran over while panting. She pulled Xiao Yi out. "Do you know what you're doing? Is this how you treat guests?" Then, she bowed apologetically to Yundong. "Miss, I'm sorry. There were too many things to do. She was too busy. I'm really sorry." Wei Lan did not expect that Xiao Yi would really come here to chase away guests when she only went to the toilet. From the first day they came here as workers, Madame Dai and Miss Nai had emphasized that they were not allowed to be rude to guests or chase them away. They tried their best to satisfy the customers' needs. If they made rude requests, they had to reject them tactfully. Only those who were really unreasonable would be chased out and not be allowed to step into new Tea Pavilion from now on. However, this girl had never done anything out of line. She had brought 2 young children with her, but they did not cause a commotion to affect the other guests. It would be unreasonable for Xiao Yi to chase them away like this. She lowered her voice and warned her, "Don't go overboard. It won't do you any good to offend the guests. What's there to be afraid of? We have Madame Dai." At this moment, Yundong had already stood up and was walking towards the door when she heard this. Therefore, this person was with Madame Dai. As expected, the conflict still emerged. Xiao Yi refused to leave. Wei Lan tried to pull her a few times but to no avail. At this moment, a scream suddenly came from the hall in front. Following that, the round-faced girl from before ran over and called Wei Lan and Xiao Yi. "Sister Lan, Sister Xiao Yi, bad news. Someone is fighting in front." What? Wei Lan and Xiao Yi were shocked. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 844, Inquiry. Wei Lan immediately ran to the front hall. Xiao Yi paused for a moment and turned to look at Yundong. She quickly followed the round-faced girl. Yundong stood where she was and was silent for a moment. Then, she said to eldest Aunt Qiuyue, who was standing behind him, "Aunt, rest here first. I'll go over and take a look." "I'll go with you." "No, I'll be right back." With that, Yundong strode towards the main hall. Just as she turned around the large screen in the hall, she heard a commotion. There were many people in the hall. Some of them had already stood up and retreated to the side to watch the commotion. Yundong glanced at them. These people were very interesting. They were still holding cups and snacks in their hands, as if they were afraid that they would lose the food. The troublemakers should be two rich wives. They were very young and looked to be less than 20 years old. At this moment, neither of them allowed the other to look at each other. It was an exaggeration to say that they were fighting. They should have quarreled. There was a broken cup on the ground. Wei Lan and Xiao Yi were persuading the two of them, but they didn't listen at all. Yundong took a few steps forward and walked to the anxious round-faced girl. She asked in a low voice, "What's going on? Which families are these two madams from?" The round-faced girl was stunned for a moment. When she turned around and saw that it was her, she only smiled slightly but did not answer. This was a private matter of a guest. How could she gossip in front of other guests, especially at such a time? But just because she didn't gossip didn't mean that others wouldn't do it. A girl standing on Yundong's right immediately told her excitedly, "You don't know, do you? Let me tell you, the one on the left is Mrs. Yu from the east of the city. Her family runs a cloth shop. The one on the right is also from the east of the city. Her surname is Tian, and her family is in the wine business." Yundong turned her head slightly and saw the girl's excited face. She held a cup of milk tea in her left hand and a loaf of bread in her right. Her eyes were shining as she stared at the two quarreling people, as if she was looking forward to them fighting. The round-faced girl also glanced at her. Perhaps because of her status, she did not say anything. On the other hand, the girl happily shared the gossip with Yundong. It said that Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian had a good relationship when they were young, but later on, they became worse and worse. They hated each other. If any family invited them to a birthday banquet, as long as one of them went, the other would definitely say that they were sick and would not go. Unless they had to, they would not see each other no matter what. "You know them quite well." Yundong could not help but want to laugh. The girl was still a little proud. "That's right. I don't have any good points, but I know a lot of things in this prefecture." Yundong was speechless. This girl was an informant. "Miss, what's your name?" "My last name is Bao." "You're really inquisitive. You didn't let this surname down at all." Yundong was speechless. Miss Bao continued, "Only this new tea pavilion has delicious food and comfortable places. This milk tea is even more novel. It made these two madams who don't like each other come over every day. They were fine before, but I didn't expect them to fight today." As Miss Bao spoke, she shook her head. "Is it because Madame Dai and Nai Shuang are not around that thieves become bolder?" When Yundong heard her mention Nai Shuang's name, she could not help but glance at her. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible."